Chapter 56-67. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, Talk Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The little beauty still maintained her sweet smile and nodded gently. Yes, yes, but this elevator is for the senior management of our group. People without fingerprint identification can't use it. And if you want to see Chairman Kong, you need to make an appointment in advance. Can you please call him and say that Lin Yi is looking for him? I think he will see me, Linny said calmly. If it was an old employee hearing Lin Yi's name, even if he didn't know, he would know who was coming. After all, whether it was Kong Xiaobo or Lai Changyi, they all regarded themselves as Lin Yi's younger brother and were quite proud of it. But although the little beauty in front of him felt that Lin Yi's name was familiar, she didn't remember that this was an important person specially ordered by the two chairmen. After all, Lin Yi had never appeared before. No, one would always remember the name of a person who had never appeared before. I'm sorry, now Chairman Kong is receiving foreign guests. It's not convenient for me to call and disturb him. Can you please wait for a moment? The little beauty said apologetically, which made Lin Yi not dissatisfied at all. Since Kong Xiaobo is not free, is Lai Changyi here? It's the same for you to find him. Lin Yi turned to ask Lai Changyi. Anyway, they were the same. If he saw one, he would naturally see the other. The little beauty said awkwardly, I'm sorry, Chairman Lai is also receiving foreign guests, so I can't contact him. Lin Yi could directly call Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi by their names. Obviously, his identity was not simple. Looking at Lin Yi's temperament, the little beauty also felt that he was not an ordinary person. So he continuously refused Lin Yi's requests, which made the little beauty a little nervous. In fact, she thought too much. How could Lin Yi be angry with an ordinary person? What's more, this little beauty gave Lin Yi a very good feeling. Such a receptionist was very cultured. Now, Lin Yi was wondering what kind of foreign guest had come to receive Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi together. After Lin Yi left, these two fellows became the co-chairmen of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Under normal circumstances, sending one was already a grand treatment. Sending two at the same time, could it be that some foreign leader came? Then forget it. When they're done with their work, tell them that I've been here and ask them to find me. Lin Yi waved his hand, thinking that since they were busy, he should just let them be. Anyway, these two guys had followed him to the transit station and said everything that needed to be said. They were more obsessed with business. So Lin Yi did not bother them with business matters. All right, Mr. Lin, I will definitely convey your message to the two chairmen. The little beauty smiled sweetly and bowed slightly. Her words and actions were impeccable. At this time, the elevator used by the group's executives opened, and a beautiful young woman came out. Hearing the little beauty's words, she asked, Who are these two guests? Do they want to see the chairman? The little beauty looked and quickly replied, Yes, CEO Lon, they want to see the two chairmen. Love, go, little, say, Net Kuive already told them that the chairmen are receiving foreign guests and can't see them for now. This beautiful young woman was Lan Fun. When she turned around and saw the smiling Lin, she immediately called out in surprise, Lin bro, you're back. Why didn't you tell us to pick you up? I'm here to tell you guys. Lin saw his old friend and made a rare joke. However, when he saw Lan Fun, he thought of Tang Yun again, and his mood became a lot gloomier. Lin bro, you're too much. You should have told Xiaobo to come down and pick you up. What kind of joke are you playing with the girl at the front desk? Lan Fun complained with a smile and pulled Lin Yi into the elevator. The little beauty at the front desk was speechless when she saw the usually calm CEO Lan getting a little excited. She thought that these two handsome guys were really not simple. Fortunately, she didn't offend them. After entering the elevator, Lan Fun directly pressed the button for the highest floor and asked, "Lin bro, how is Tang Yun now?" He couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He just thought of Tang Yun, and Lan Fun also asked about her. She was really the best friend. Lan Fun was secretly annoyed. Why did she ask Tang Yun for no reason? Why did she ask when she already knew? She was really stupid. Just when she was thinking about how to change the topic without leaving a trace, Languza suddenly whispered to Lin Yi, "Boss, her surname is Lan too. Could she be a relative of mine? Look at how handsome I am and how pretty she is. It seems very possible." Linny looked at Languza speechlessly. What was going on? Lan Fen was a real human in the secular world. You're a real flood dragon from the endless sea. Relative? Don't talk about 8 poles. Even 8 million poles wouldn't be able to connect. Lan Fen was just worrying about how to change the topic, and someone gave her a way out. She laughed and said, "Mister, is your surname Lan too? What a coincidence. Maybe our ancestors are really a family." Linny looked at Lan Fun and didn't say anything. If Lan Fun knew that the person in front of her was a flood dragon, she would probably go to her ancestors' graves to repent. Saying that one's ancestor was a flood dragon in the secular world was equivalent to saying that one's family was the descendant of a demon. Languza didn't care what Lin Yi was thinking. His favorite thing to do was to communicate with beautiful or handsome humans. When Lan Fun responded, he immediately used his special skills and started chatting with Lan Fun in 2 or 3 sentences. Lan Fun didn't want Lin Yi to remember Tang Yun's sad memories, so she cooperated and chatted with Languza. When the elevator stopped, the two of them were like long-lost siblings. When the elevator door opened, they heard a quarrel coming from the chairman's office. Because this floor was not accessible to unauthorized people, the office door wasn't closed. The conversation inside could be heard clearly. An unfamiliar man said loudly in stiff Chinese, "If the medicine from your miracle Dr. Guan Medicine Company wants to enter Europe to participate in this medicine exhibition, you have to go through our holy..." Kong Xiaobo interrupted without hesitation. "We received an invitation from Europe to participate in the exhibition." "What kind of organization are you? Holy? Do you have Saint Seiya? Do you want us to meet your leader, Athena? Will she hit us with a golden staff?" Chapter 56-68. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, Shua, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Kong Xiaobo laughed and said disdainfully, "Fine. I want to see if your Saint Seiya is really that powerful. Whatever methods you have to deal a blow to our miracle Dr. Guan Medicine Group, bring it on." Today, Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi were already masters of the foundation building stage. In the secular world, apart from their own people, they were invincible. Not to mention that Kong Xiaobo was just laughing at the other party. Even if the other party really had Saint Seiya, Kong Xiaobo was not afraid at all. As for using normal business methods, Kong Xiaobo had nothing to worry about with a business expert like Lai Changyi. After all, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company had a lot of funds. There was nothing to worry about when it came to capital. No matter if it was civil or military, Kong Xiaobo wasn't afraid of them at all. His words were full of confidence. If they were here to discuss business, Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi would cooperate with them. But if they wanted to threaten Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, then they had the wrong idea. The strange man said something in English, flustered and exasperated. Kong Xiaobo said indifferently, "Take care, I won't see you out." Then Lin Yi saw 2 Europeans walk out angrily, swearing in English. Lin Yi frowned slightly, but he did not intend to teach them a lesson. To be honest, it was not suitable for Lin Yi to intervene in the affairs of the secular world. Moreover, he believed that Kong Xiaobo and Lai Changyi could handle the business affairs well. This matter seemed simple. Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company wanted to enter Europe, and the springboard was a medical exhibition that was about to start. Then, an organization in charge of this business jumped out and asked for benefits from Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, but Kang Xiaobo rejected them cleanly. Lan Fen waited for the two to leave, then smiled apologetically at Lin Yi. "Brother Lin, I'm sorry that you just came back and saw such an unpleasant scene." Lin Yi waved his hand. "What's there to be sorry about? Any product that wants to enter Europe and America will be resisted by the local financial oligarchs. To enter the market smoothly, it's not just about having a good product. Xiaobo and Lai Changyi should be able to handle these things well. I don't have to worry about it, right?" Hearing the conversation between Lin Yi and Lan Fen, Kang Xiaobo and Lai Changyi rushed out. "Boss, you're back. How was it? Was it fun in the ancient Jianghu?" The two rushed up and gave Lin Yi a bear hug as they spoke. They were the lackeys who followed Lin Yi from the beginning, so their relationship wasn't ordinary. Lin Yi was quite happy as well, and he smiled. "There's nothing fun about it, so I'm back." "Ha ha ha, then why don't you stay, boss?" Kang Xiaobo laughed loudly. Although he knew that it was impossible, it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lai Changyi pushed Kang Xiaobo away. "Stop talking nonsense. Let the boss sit inside. Quickly take out your treasured tea and brew it." "Damn, fatty Lai, you've been eyeing my tea leaves for a long time, haven't you? You know that the boss doesn't like tea, so you're using your position for personal gain, aren't you?" Kang Xiaobo looked angry, but his eyes were full of smiles. With Lin Yi here, the atmosphere seemed to be completely different from usual. Lai Changyi also laughed loudly. He didn't admit nor deny, and pulled Lin Yi to the office. After Languza was introduced to the two quickly became familiar with Languza. They were all Lin Yi's lackeys, so they were considered family, and there was a natural sense of closeness. In addition to Languza's characteristic of being familiar with people, the few of them were already close brothers in a short time. After chatting for a while, the topic turned to the two Europeans from before. Although Lin Yi didn't want to intervene in the affairs of the secular world, it didn't matter if he listened to the ins and outs. If necessary, he could also provide some suggestions of his own. In fact, the most important thing was that Languza was very interested in the saints of the Sanctum, Saya, and Athena, but he didn't know that this was just Kang Xiaobo's nonsense. After listening to Kang Xiaobo's official explanation, Lin Yi knew that this sanctum organization was indeed not a simple place. Although there were no saints, in Europe, it was definitely an existence that could turn the clouds and rain with a flip of their hands. "You said that this sanctum alliance suddenly appeared recently and then monopolized the European pharmaceutical market in a very short time." Lin Yi frowned. This wasn't what he'd expected. It wasn't what he'd expected. Kang Xiaobo nodded and said, "Yes, I have never heard of the Sanctum Alliance in Europe before. Although our products are not exported to Europe and the United States because the supply of our products cannot meet the demand in our country, we also pay attention to the European and American markets. After all, opening the international market is something that needs to be done sooner or later." Lai Changyi also said, "Our gold sore medicine is very popular in Europe. Since we can't order it through formal channels, many smuggling groups specially buy it in China and then smuggle it to Europe to make huge profits. Therefore, the gold sore medicine is still very well known in Europe. This time, the pharmaceutical exhibition sent an invitation letter to our group because of this reason. It just so happens that our production capacity has been further improved, and it is time to start entering the international market." The two sides hit it off. That European exhibition got a positive answer from us, and they were very happy. I didn't expect that the Sanctum Alliance would suddenly appear and even send people to our group. Lan Fen personally made tea and filled Lin Yi and Languza's cups, as she said with a smile. Kong Xiaobo moved a little to the side and let Lan Fen sit down next to him. Then he continued Lan Fen's words and said, "Boss, since the appearance of the Sanctum Alliance, the attitude of the organizers of the pharmaceutical exhibition has become a little subtle. So this time, Brother Lai and I met the people sent by the Sanctum Alliance together, wanting to find out the other party's background." "So, did you find out?" Lin Yi thanked Lan Fen, picked up the teacup, and said faintly. Lai Changyi and Kong Xiaobo looked at each other awkwardly, and then said, "Boss, you saw the situation just now. These two foreigners came with an arrogant look. They talked for a long time, and the result was that they parted on bad terms. They didn't get any useful information." Chapter 56-69. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, to provide you with wonderful novels to read. I know about this. The organizer is a pharmaceutical group, and behind it is an ancient noble family in France with a deep background in Europe. Lan Fen seemed to be in charge of this information, so she answered Lin Yi's question. Lin Yi put down the teacup and smiled faintly. An organization with such a deep background was suppressed by the Sacred Alliance that just popped up. It'd be a miracle if you guys could find out anything about the Sacred Alliance. Languza imitated Lin Yi and took a sip of tea, but he felt bitter. He wanted to spit it out, but he was afraid of embarrassing Lin Yi. It would be over if Lin Yi did not bring him along when he went out in the future. He could only swallow the tea with a bitter face. After hearing Lin Yi's words, he quickly put down the teacup and actively asked, "Boss, that Sanctuary Alliance, why don't you let me go and kill them? By the way, where is Europe? If I go and kill them now, I can still come back in time for dinner, right?" In fact, Languza was so eager to deal with the Sanctuary Alliance because he wanted to confirm whether there were Saint Seiya and Goddess Athena there. Kong Xiaobo said it was a joke, but Languza felt that he still had to confirm it himself. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said, "You don't have to do it yourself. I will let you know if I need anything." Languza said with emotion, "Boss, if you need anything, Languza, will do it properly." After that, he focused on eating some fruit pastries on the table that Lan Fen put on the table. As for the teacup, he would not touch it a second time, even if he was beaten to death. After being interrupted by Languza, Lin Yi did not want to talk more about the Sanctuary Alliance. There was not enough information now, so it was useless to talk more. So he got up and said, "That's it for today. When will you go to Europe for the exhibition? Let me know when the time comes. I will go with you." "Yes, boss." Kong Xiaobo and the others hurriedly stood up. Although they didn't think that Lin Yi needed to deal with these trivial matters, they would be more confident if Lin Yi went with them. Moreover, it was rare for them to meet Lin Yi, so they could go to Europe together. "Boss, why don't we go for a meal together?" Lai Changyi saw that Lin Yi was about to leave shortly after he arrived, so he wanted to have a meal together and get together for a while longer. If Lin Yi were to return to the Heaven Stage Island according to his original plan, they would definitely have a meal together. But now that he had decided to check out the Sacred Alliance, he naturally wasn't in a hurry. Most importantly, Lin Yi felt that the appearance of the Sacred Alliance was a little strange. "This timing, you guys go ahead with your work. I still have to meet someone else. Dinner can wait until I go to Europe." Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand, indicating that they didn't need to send him off. He turned around and walked towards the elevator with Languza. Lin Yi said that they didn't need to send him off, but Kong Xiaobo, Lai Changyi, and the others couldn't really not send him off. After all, Lin Yi was their most respected boss. Even Lan Fen, they accompanied him into the elevator and sent him out of the building. "All right, you guys go back to your work. If you continue to send me off, you'll have to send me back to the villa. Just call me if there's anything." After Lin Yi finished speaking, he didn't care about Kong Xiaobo and the others anymore. He brought Languza and left the Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group. Languza followed Lin Yi for a while. His eyes lit up when he saw the trendy clothes in the display window. "Boss, I want some new clothes. Why don't we go there?" Lin Yi looked at the clothing store. He wasn't interested in accompanying Languza to shop, so he immediately shook his head and said, "It's too troublesome to buy clothes. It's not convenient to hold them in my hands. Why don't you buy them yourself and go back to the villa?" Languza suddenly hesitated. On one hand, there were handsome clothes. On the other hand, there was a rare opportunity to come out and broaden his horizons. It was hard to choose. Lin Yi didn't stop walking. He said without turning his head, "Let's go. I'll get someone to send a set of clothes suitable for you to the villa. It'll be enough for you to wear for a few years." This was nothing. The wealth of the common world was just a meaningless number to Lin Yi. If Languza liked it, he could buy a clothing company to make clothes for Languza. There was no need to waste even a second on this. Languza heard Lin Yi's words and laughed. He followed Lin Yi in satisfaction and continued to look around. Lin Yi was thinking about who he should look for next. He suddenly stopped and looked carefully. This seemed to be the bar where he met Sun Jingyi for the first time. Speaking of which, he hadn't seen Sun Jingyi for a long time. Thinking about the promise of being half a lover, Lin Yi couldn't help but miss it. "Let's go see Sun Jingyi." Lin Yi immediately made a decision. It's just that Sun Jingyi's family was in another city. It was still a bit far from here. Lin Yi could fly there quickly if he transformed into his primordial spirit, but Languza couldn't follow. "Boss, do you want to go there to eat? Then let's go. What are you standing here for?" Languza followed Lin Yi's gaze and saw a Western restaurant. There were a few people eating inside. He suddenly felt a little hungry. Actually, Languza was a super expert in the late stage of mysterious ascension. What he needed to replenish was pure spiritual energy. The food of the secular world was useless no matter how much he ate. The so-called hunger was completely because his mouth was gluttonous. Lin Yi looked at the Western restaurant and sighed softly in his heart. That was the bar he and Sun Jingyi met, but now it had become a completely different Western restaurant. Things really remain the same, but people have changed. Let's go there and eat something." Lin Yi didn't refuse Languza's proposal this time. Although the bar was no longer there, the place was still the same. It was good to go in and sit. When Languza heard Lin Yi's agreement, he immediately ran over with a smile and opened the door before the doorman. Just as he was about to go in, he suddenly turned around and said to Lin Yi, "Boss, please go first. When did you become so polite?" Lin Yi smiled and didn't bother with Languza. He walked in first. The Western restaurant's decoration was very luxurious. It didn't seem to be low grade, but Lin Yi was very disappointed. After entering, he felt that there was really no trace of the previous bar. Chapter 5670. Genius 1 Second. Remember, if you want to go, we provide you with wonderful novels to read. He called out more than a dozen dishes in one breath. Lin Yi was dumbfounded. How did this guy know these dishes? He was so smooth that he could do crosstalk, right? The key was that this was a Western restaurant. You called out so many Chinese dishes, and they covered the 4 major cuisines. You're clearly here to cause trouble, right? Actually, how would Languza know the difference between Chinese and Western cuisine? He had seen these dishes on TV. At that time, he was already drooling. Now that he finally came to a restaurant, of course, he had to order everything at once. However, as a carnivorous sea beast king, he definitely wouldn't eat vegetables. He also wanted to vomit from eating seafood. Chicken, duck, beef, lamb, and pork were enough. Just as Lin Yi thought about it, a young man rushed out angrily and shouted, "Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you cause trouble at my place? Are you tired of living? Seeing this person rush out, the few diners who were already there paid the bill and left in a hurry. Obviously, they knew that this person wasn't easy to get along with. However, he was a little surprised. The voice sounded familiar. Could it be someone he knew? Looking back, he indeed looked familiar, but he couldn't remember his name. It should be a small character. He had seen him before, but he didn't pay much attention to him. As he didn't have time to sit down and was still standing near the door, the young man and 4 burly men directly ignored Yi and surrounded Languza. Languza said curiously, "Why are you surrounding me? Hurry up and send the dishes up. Get out of the way. The stench is affecting my appetite." "Kid, which path are you from? Who ordered you to come here to cause trouble?" The young man saw that Languza was still fearless after being surrounded. He felt that this guy might have some background, so he spoke more politely. Languza scratched his head and thought to himself, "I'm from the Endless Seas, Serpent Island. Have you heard of it? Boss, is it so troublesome to eat here? Can I beat them up?" Languza ignored the young man and stood up to ask Yi. Languza was about 2 meters tall. When he stood up, he was about a head taller than those burly men. He felt like a crane in a flock of chickens. When he heard that Languza had a boss, the young man's heart jumped. He quickly looked back and saw that Yi was just standing there, casually. He didn't seem powerful. However, when he looked carefully, the young man's expression suddenly changed. This guy looked very familiar. Before he could speak, another young man ran out and shouted anxiously, "Brother, don't be impulsive. Let's talk this out. Guru Lin told us to behave and not cause trouble." "Brother, don't be impulsive. Let's talk about it. Hayashi Lin told us to behave and not cause trouble." Lin erased his eyebrows. Because this was the place where he met Sun Jingyi for the first time, he didn't use his divine sense to scan the place. Anyway, there was no danger in the secular world, so he didn't need to be vigilant all the time. So, he missed some acquaintances here. The one who just ran out, he recognized at a glance. It was Zhou Ruoming, the second of the 4 big bullies. He was also Lin Yi's schoolmate and later became Lin Yi's underling. However, he joined Lin Yi later, so he wasn't as successful as Kong Xiaobo. Seeing Zhou Ruoming, Lin Yi remembered who the familiar young man was. He was Zhou Ruoming's brother, Zhou Ruoguang, who used to be a gangster. But this guy didn't have many contacts with Lin Yi, so Lin Yi didn't pay much attention to him. It was normal that he didn't remember him. Hearing his brother's words, Zhou Ruoguang's expression became extremely strange. Obviously, he had recognized that the blue-haired big boss was Lin Yi. In the beginning, Zhou Ruoguang was the first one in the Zhou family who was afraid of Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't have a deep impression of him, but he was afraid of Lin Yi to the bone. Now that he recognized Lin Yi, he should come to greet him immediately. However, no one knew what Zhou Ruoguang was thinking. He rolled his eyes and pretended that he didn't recognize Lin Yi. He shouted to Zhou Ruoming, "What do you mean I'm impulsive? Don't you see that this guy is here to make trouble? Who would order twice-cooked pork and ancient-style pork in a Western restaurant? Crab meat lion's head? I will put some powder on his face, and then he will have a big lion's head." Lin Yi looked at Zhou Ruoguang with interest. This guy obviously recognized him, but he was still pretending. What was he going to do? In fact, Zhou Ruoguang was also panicking. He was afraid that Lin Yi would turn against him, so he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. He changed the topic and said, "Ruoming, don't talk about Hayashi Lin all day. You'd better think about yourself. If your Hayashi Lin is really so powerful, why didn't he come to help you?" Hearing this, Lin Yi understood. Zhou Ruoguang pretended that he didn't know him to say this to him. He didn't know what trouble Zhou Ruoming encountered. After all, He was Lin Yi's underling's underling. If he could help, Lin Yi wouldn't mind helping him. Brother, don't say that. Hayashi Lin must have his own things to do. Besides, he left for college. How can he help me if he doesn't know my business? So Ruoming defended Lin Yi. In fact, he also knew that Lin Yi's identity was already too high for him to reach. Even if Lin Yi was here, he wouldn't have time to care about him. As he was thinking about this, he turned his head and saw Lin Yi standing not far from him. A few years had passed, but Lin Yi didn't change at all. Naturally, Zhou Ruoming recognized Lin Yi at a glance. Hayashi Lin, is it really you? Zhou Ruoming rubbed his eyes hard and couldn't believe it. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, Zhou Ruoming, long time no see. Did you open this restaurant? Yes. I opened it. Hayashi Lin, why didn't you tell me that you were coming back? Let me hold a welcoming dinner for you. What a coincidence today. A chance encounter is better than an invitation. God, Lin, you have to give me some face and let me treat you to a meal. Ruoming was overjoyed as he grabbed the opportunity to invite Lin Yi to a meal. If it was another time, Lin Yi was someone that Zhou Ruoming couldn't even invite. It was rare that Lin Yi took the initiative to come to his restaurant. Of course, he would take the opportunity to build a good relationship with him. Chapter 56-71. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he looked at Zhou Ruoguang's back. This guy was still acting. If it was before, and Lin Yi didn't ask him to leave, Zhou Ruoguang wouldn't leave even if he was beaten to death. But now he was acting like this. Could it be that Zhou Ruoguang was in big trouble? To be honest, Lin Yi didn't really remember what happened to Zhou Ruoguang's house. Hidden House Zhuang was the one who contacted House So and made House So an outer power. With a hidden background, House So should be doing well. What kind of trouble could they have in the common world? After sitting down, Lin Yi asked casually, So, Ruoguang, I remember that your house was the head of the underground world in Songshan, right? How come you're in the mood to open a restaurant now? So Ruoguang smiled bitterly. It was all thanks to Hayashi Lin that we were able to rely on Hidden House Zhuang and take over the power vacuum left by House Zhao. But the good times didn't last long. My father got into an accident, and my brother couldn't control the situation. The hidden world was too far away from Songshan. Plus, the situation of the noble houses is different now. There are many new noble houses, and Hidden House Zhuang seems to have disappeared, no longer interfering with the common world. Lin Yi nodded in realization. So it was because Zhou Qiandi was dead. These two Zhou brats weren't made for the underground world. And when Lin Yi went to Sky Class Island, it was a huge shock to the ancient sects and hidden houses. These people were probably thinking about how to get to Sky Class Island. Where would they have the time to care about the common world? Plus, Lin Yi didn't seem to care that much about the Zhou family at first, and it was fine if he just helped them a little. What he cared about was the fact that they could protect Ziyu in school, but now that Ziyu was gone, what was the point of having them? Lin Yi guessed that these family clans with a bit of heritage were already beginning to strive for the perfected Heaven Realm. They were prepared to think of ways to ascend Heaven Realm Island. After all, news of Lin Yi becoming a Heavenly Dao Realm Foundation establishment expert had already spread. These people would definitely work harder. Languza, of course, was all smiles as he gobbled down the food on the side. He was having a great time eating, completely ignoring the contents of Lin Yi and Zhou Ruoming's conversation. After Zhou Ruoming briefly explained the situation at home, he asked, Hayashi Lin has graduated from university, right? Was he preparing to return to Songshan to develop his career? But this place is still a little too small, and Hayashi Lin won't be able to do much when he comes back, right? So Ruoming didn't know much about Lin Yi's life after university. He was just a normal person at the bottom of society, so he didn't know what was going on in the noble houses and above. Pinliang was also one of the big four, and he was doing pretty well on Heaven Realm Island. Zhou Ruoming, on the other hand, was still struggling at the bottom. If he had been like Kang Xiaobo and recognized Lin Yi as his boss from the start, he would have risen to the top a long time ago. Lin Yi only brushed off Zhou Ruoming's question casually. Zhou Ruoming wouldn't understand, even if he explained it, so he just let him understand it with his own imagination. Hayashi Lin, you're with Miss Tang Yin now, right? Or was he with Miss Meng Yao? To be honest, only Hayashi Lin is good enough for such outstanding girls. Zhou Ruoming was happy to be able to chat with Lin Yi, but there were only so many topics they could talk about, so it was inevitable that Lin Yi's sadness was brought up. Lin Yi sighed in his heart, but maintained a faint smile on his face. He changed the topic and asked, "Don't always talk about me. Tell me about you." Since he knew that Zhou Ruoming was in trouble, Lin Yi still wanted to help him, but the premise was that Zhou Ruoming had to say it himself. If he didn't want to say it, Lin Yi wouldn't force himself to help. After all, their relationship wasn't that good yet. Zhou Ruoming smiled bitterly again. "Since Hayashi Lin wants to hear it, then I'll tell you, it's actually nothing much, Hayashi Lin. You know that I've been staying in school for a long time, so there's no way I can get into any university. Of course, it's not hard for my old man to get me into any university, but I'm not interested in it, so I graduated and started my own business." "That's not bad. It's better than wasting my time," Lin echoed faintly. He really thought that Zhou Ruoming was doing a good job. However, Zhou Ruoming still didn't say what was his problem, and Lin Yi couldn't take the initiative to ask him, so he could only continue to wait. At this time, Zhou Ruoguang came out again and asked coldly, "Are the dishes okay? Is there anything else you want to eat?" Lin Yi hadn't eaten any of it before, so he didn't mind thanking him. He wanted to see how long Ruoguang could keep up the act. Languza, on the other hand, stuffed his mouth full of all kinds of meat. He said with a muffled voice, "The food sounds delicious, but the quantity is a little small. If it's possible, please give me 2 portions of each." The corner of Zhou Ruoguang's mouth twitched. There were so many dishes, and they were ordered for 10 people, but this blue-blonde big guy actually wanted 2 more. Wouldn't he be stuffed to death if he ate food for 30 people at once? What he didn't know was that although Languza was in human form, he was actually a sea serpent dragon. For a serpent dragon, food for 30 people wasn't even enough to fill the gap between his teeth. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't have any objections, Zhou Ruoguang could only ask someone to continue ordering Chinese food, and the Western food would be prepared by his own kitchen. It didn't need to be too exquisite, because that big guy wasn't even tasting it. He was just gulping it down. No matter how exquisite the food was, it was just like a cow chewing on a peony. "Ruoming, since you admire Hayashi Lin so much and believe in Hayashi Lin, why don't you tell Hayashi Lin about your situation? Let's see if the powerful Hayashi Lin can help you," Zhou Ruoguang said directly to Zhou Ruoming after he gave the order. There weren't many opportunities to meet Lin Yi. If he didn't seize this opportunity, he might not have another chance like this in the future. Zhou Ruoming said, awkwardly, "Brother, don't get involved. Hayashi Lin is powerful, but the opponent isn't ordinary either. Don't cause trouble for Hayashi Lin. If you can't even solve such a small matter, then why are you admiring him?" So Ruoguang seemed to be going all out. Although his heart was trembling, his words were quite firm. Chapter 5672. This was also because Zhou Ruoming didn't know what Lin Yi had been doing for the past few years. He thought that it was just a simple case of picking up girls in school, so he didn't want to make things difficult for Lin Yi. At this point, Lin Yi couldn't just ignore it anymore. He went straight to the point. "Zhou Ruoming, is there any trouble? If you need it, I'll see if I can help you solve it." So Ruoming hesitated, but he didn't want to say it. Lin Yi didn't force him. Whether he needed help or not was up to him. It was already too much for Lin Yi to ask for his opinion. So Ruoguang looked disappointed. He glared at Zhou Ruoming and said it himself, "It's like this. My brother, this idiot, likes a girl. Brother, let me say it myself." So Ruoming quickly interrupted Zhou Ruoguang. It was better for him to say it himself than let someone else say it. Lin Yi only heard half of the story. He thought that these two brothers wouldn't ask him to help them snatch the girl away. Would they? That was too ridiculous. If they really dared to say something like that, they would definitely be slapped to death. When Lin Yi slapped him for the first time, it was Zhou Ruoming who wanted to snatch Tang Yin away. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. So Ruoming quickly explained the whole story and solved Lin Yi's doubts. "Hayashi Lin, actually, the girl I like used to be a waitress here. Don't worry, I didn't use any underhanded methods. I really like her." So Ruoming was afraid that Lin Yi would misunderstand, so he explained it first. After all, he had the reputation of being a bully. Lin Yi nodded and didn't say anything. So Ruoming continued. "Her name is Liang Ruoqing. She is a very strong girl. I fell in love with her the moment I saw her. Maybe it was love at first sight, but at the beginning, she didn't really care about me. I asked her out a few times, but was rejected." So Ruoguang panicked. This idiot brother, did he forget who he was talking to? He was still reminiscing about his love story with a sweet face. Get to the point. Although Lin Yi didn't look impatient, Zhou Ruoguang didn't dare to let Zhou Ruoming continue talking about his love story. He coughed a few times. So Ruoming wasn't an idiot. He saw his brother coughing so hard that his face and neck were red. Then he realized that it was time for him to get to the point. "After that, my sincerity was able to move mountains and rocks. Finally, I fell in love with Ruoqing. After that, I found out that Ruoqing wasn't a girl from a normal family. She was a young lady from a rich family. She came to work in a small place like mine to escape from her marriage." Speaking of this, Zhou Ruoming's face was full of bitterness. When the Zhou family was in the limelight, they might have been able to match Liang Ruoqing's family background. But now, they couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Lin Yi felt strange from the beginning. Even if the hidden aristocratic families started to cultivate hard and stop caring about worldly affairs, the aristocratic families in the secular world had been abolished. Now, it was the cultivator alliance that was in charge. What the hell was a new aristocratic family? However, Lin Yi didn't ask. He waited for Zhou Ruoming to continue. It wouldn't be too late to ask about other things later. So Ruoming sighed softly. "I don't know how Ruoqing's family found her. They came and took her away. They even warned me not to look for her again. Otherwise, they would break my brother and my limbs and throw us on the side of the road like beggars. God, Lin, I know that you have a good relationship with the people in the hidden world. I wonder if you could help my brother mediate this." So Ruoguang finally dropped his disguise and asked Lin Yi sincerely. Although the hidden Zhou family no longer cared about worldly affairs, and the structure of the aristocratic families had changed, Lin Yi might still have some connections in the past that he could use. Even when the Zhou family was in the limelight, they couldn't ask for anything directly from the higher-ups, let alone in this situation. Although they didn't know how powerful Lin Yi was, they could only try their best. Lin Yi asked calmly, "What did the girl named Liang Ruoqing say? She left with her family just like that?" A pained expression appeared on Ruoming's face. "Ruoqing's family threatened us, saying that if she didn't go back with us to get married, they'd deal with us immediately. They've sent cultivators, and you know as well as I do, God Lin, cultivators are strong, and we can't fight them at all. They said that it'd be a piece of cake for them to deal with us. So, Ruoqing had to go back with them. Linny nodded. It seemed that the girl named Liang Ruoqing was a good person, and she seemed to have a good relationship with Zhou Ruoming. In this way, he would have a good reason to attack them. Languza suddenly raised his head and said vaguely, "Boss, are the cultivators here very powerful? Why don't I go and kill them?" Lin Yi was speechless. After this guy evolved into a dragon, he seemed to have become more violent. As soon as he heard that there was a possibility of a fight, he was the first one to stand up. "Go eat your food. Don't interrupt." Linny laughed and waved his hand, sending Languza away. He'd have to wait for Xiaobo's news anyways, and helping Ruoming out while he was at it wasn't too much of a hassle. He'd just have to get a lackey from a hidden house to do it for him. "Tell me in detail about this new aristocratic family. Where is their family located? Also, who is Liang Ruoqing going to marry?" Linny asked casually, knowing this information would give him a better choice. After all, his subordinates were scattered all over the place. It would be easier to deal with the ones that were closer. So Ruoming was a little excited. He knew that Lin Yi was powerful, but he didn't know how powerful he was. However, if Lin Yi could really speak to those families, then there was a glimmer of hope. "Hayashi Lin, the Liang family is in Anhuang City. I heard that they are going to marry an even more powerful family. As for which family, I'm not sure. Ruoqing didn't tell me." The information that Zhou Ruoming could provide was very limited, so he was a little embarrassed. "Anhuang City? If it's there." Linny frowned. It was a small city, but he had some impression of it. After thinking carefully, he confirmed that it was the city next to Sun Jingyi's family. It wasn't far from Sun Jingyi's family. Lin Yi had been there a few times, so he had some impression of it. Chapter 56-73. "Well, that's where I'm going. Why don't you come with me now? I'll help you propose a marriage. Let's see what kind of family is so powerful that they even dare to bully my classmate." Lin Yi wanted to say that he was Lin Yi's younger brother, but the Zhou family was not qualified to be Lin Yi's younger brother before. It was only a younger brother's younger brother, and now it was even less qualified. Forcing Zhou Ruoming to be Zhou Ruoming's younger brother, no matter what Zhou Ruoming thought, Lin Yi didn't think it was necessary. It was better to say that they were classmates. After all, they went to the same high school together, so they could be classmates. So Ruoming was pleasantly surprised. He wanted Lin Yi to help him, but he didn't expect that Lin Yi would take him directly to the Liang family to propose a marriage. As for Lin Yi's background, Zhou Ruoming really didn't know much, but after hearing Lin Yi's words, he felt that Lin Yi would never lie. If he said it, he would definitely do it. He didn't know where this strange confidence came from. In the end, Zhou Ruoming could only attribute it to the fact that he valued Liang Ruoqing too much. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he wouldn't give up, just like a drowning man grasping at a life-saving straw. Good. Hayashi Lin, wait a moment. I'll drive the car here right now. By the way, do you need to prepare something? So Ruoming stood up, wanted to go out, but turned back, walked out, and turned back again. He was like an ant on a hot pot. It was rare that he still remembered that he needed to prepare something for a marriage proposal, but Lin Yi didn't want to waste time like this. It didn't matter which noble house it was in the mortal world. It was a great honor for Lin Yi to come and ask for their hand in marriage. Why would he need any other gifts? There's no need. It's just a marriage proposal. Hurry up and settle it so you can rest assured. Lin Yi waved his hand indifferently, then turned to Languza and asked, "Languza, do you want to eat here and go home by yourself? Or do you want to come with me?" "Of course it's with boss." Languza stretched his neck and swallowed the food in his mouth. Without hesitation, he said, "Oh, right, Boss, this guy ordered a lot of things just now. Can I bring them along to eat? This guy actually knows how to pack. Lin Yi was also speechless. He waved his hand and signaled him to do as he saw fit. When Zhou Ruoming got Lin Yi's reply, he quickly ran to get the car. Zhou Ruoguang didn't dare to neglect. He quickly ordered Languza to pack food. He also knew that this big man with blue and golden hair was definitely not an ordinary person. It was better to flatter him. It was reasonable to think about it. How could he be an ordinary person if he could eat food for 30 people? Soon, there was a sudden breaking sound outside the restaurant. Zhou Ruoming rushed in again and said, "Hayashi Lin, I've brought the car. Are we leaving now?" Linny looked out and saw a white Land Rover executive parked outside. The car was spacious enough for a big man like Languza to sit in the back and eat. "Languza, let's go," Lin Yi said, and gestured to Zhou Ruoming to go out with him. Zhou Ruoming trotted to the door and opened the door for Lin Yi. Then he ran to open the car door for Lin Yi. This was related to his and Liang Ruoqing's lifelong happiness. It was necessary to flatter them. So Ruoguang also asked someone to bring the packed food. After the Zhou family had declined, the relationship between the two brothers became much better. As Zhou Ruoming's older brother, he had to go and see what was going on. Lin Yi and Languza sat in the back seat. One of the Zhou brothers drove, while the other one sat in the front passenger seat. After closing the door, the white Land Rover roared and rushed out. House So had fallen, but the two brothers still had some money left in them. At the very least, the car wasn't cheap. It was a top-end Land Rover, and it had been modified as well. You wouldn't be able to get it for less than $1 million. Under Ruoming's control, the car sped up, and soon they were on the highway. So Ruoming just wanted to get to the Liang family in Anhuang City as soon as possible, so he didn't care about speeding at all. Fortunately, his driving skills were excellent. Although the car was fast, he could keep it steady, so Languza could eat in the back seat with peace of mind. Otherwise, it would be bad if he annoyed Zhou Ruoming. More than an hour later, Zhou Ruoming's car got off the highway and drove to the suburbs of Anhuang City. After another 10 minutes, they came to a beautiful place. So Ruoguang, who was in the front passenger seat, pointed to a villa on the hillside and said, "Hayashi Lin, that is the Liang family. It's a good place. They really know how to enjoy themselves." Lin Yi said faintly. He had already released his divine sense and covered the entire villa. This new noble house really wasn't that impressive. There was only one mystic early phase and a dozen or so golden class practitioners. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to tell if they were early phase or mid phase or whatnot. They were just normal people in his eyes. The closer Zhou Ruoming got to the Liang family, the more nervous he felt. So he didn't say a word and quickly drove to the entrance of the villa. The four of them got off the car. Languza touched his stomach with a satisfied expression. Although he didn't feel full after eating, it was quite satisfying to eat along the way. "Boss, the houses here are so beautiful. It's much better than what I saw in the city. I want to build a house like this when I return to Serpent Dragon Island in the future," Languza said with envy when he saw this group of antique buildings. Compared to the reinforced concrete buildings in the city, this kind of ancient-style building was more attractive to Languza. The red walls, green tiles, carved beams, and painted rafters were indeed more charming and beautiful. "All right, let's get down to business first. I'll find a construction team to build a house for you on your island," Lin Yi said with a smile. He thought of the pavilion-style hall on Jiao Dragon Island and understood Languza's feelings. Languza's eyes lit up and nodded. "That's great. Don't forget, boss." "Oh, right. The 2 stone spirit beasts in front of the door should be bigger. These are too small. It'd be great if they were sea turtles. And the stone balls in front of the door can be replaced with turtle eggs. Wait until you have a say in your family. Then we'll change. Turtle son of a bitch. Lin, he couldn't help but smile. This guy really knew how to do things. Only the sea beasts could come up with such a strange combination. Chapter 5674. Zhou Ruoguang grabbed a brass ring and knocked on the brass nail on the door. At the same time, he shouted, "Is there anyone here? Please open the door." Someone replied quickly, "Who is it? Wait, stop knocking." Lin Yi knew that there was a small room behind the door. There were people guarding there, so he wasn't surprised at all. The red door opened halfway, revealing a gap that was enough for one person to pass through. A young man walked out and looked at Zhou Ruoguang, Lin Yi, and the others. He didn't know them. "Who are you? What business do you have with the Liang family?" Because he didn't know who Lin Yi and the others were, the man wasn't arrogant. He just asked in a normal tone. So Ruoming quickly moved to the side to let Lin Yi in. He pointed at him and said, "We are from Songshan. This is Mr. Lin Yi and his brother. I'm Zhou Ruoguang, and that is my brother, Zhou Ruoming. We would like to see the master of the house." The guard's nostrils flared when he heard that they were from Songshan. There weren't any aristocratic families in that place. If there were, it would be the Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group and House Chu's Villa. However, these people didn't mention the name of Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group, and they didn't mention the important people in House Chu's Villa. Naturally, they weren't from any aristocratic families. "Do you have an appointment? Our master is very busy. He doesn't have time to deal with people like you. If you want to see our master, make an appointment a week in advance. Goodbye." After saying that, he turned around and went back into the door. So Ruoguang said hurriedly, "Brother, please help me inform the master. We really have an emergency." Before he could finish, the door closed with a bang, and Zhou Ruoguang, who was chasing after him, almost knocked into him. After turning around, Zhou Ruoguang's expression turned ugly. Although he was in awe of Lin Yi, he still said, "Hayashi Lin, it seems like your title doesn't work either. Will this work or not? Don't drag us brothers into the pit when the time comes." Because the hidden Zhuang clan had disappeared, Zhou Ruoguang was worried that Lin Yi's connections with the upper echelons had been severed. After all, the structure of aristocratic families had changed. If the Liang clan didn't give Lin Yi face, then the two brothers would have their limbs broken and become beggars. Of course, since the Liang family knew about the Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group and the Chu family, they forgot about Lin Yi. It was obvious that after a few years, Lin Yi left. When he left, the Liang family wasn't an aristocratic family yet. Languza glared at him. "What are you talking about, kid? How dare you speak to my boss like that? Do you believe that I won't slap you to death?" So Ruoguang pouted and didn't say anything else. After all, he knew how strong Lin Yi was. It was fine to complain, but it would be stupid to offend him. Besides, Lin Yi was here to help. Lin Yi didn't mind. With his current status, he wouldn't argue with Zhou Ruoguang. He smiled faintly. "Zhou Ruoming, go and knock on the door. Let me do the talking." Zhou Ruoming was very confident in Lin Yi. After agreeing, he ran and grabbed the brass ring to knock on the door again. However, the person inside didn't care at all. Zhou Ruoming called for 2 or 3 minutes, but there wasn't even a response. He just pretended that there was no one inside. Lin Yi smiled coldly. "Since no one is opening the door, Languza, you go and open the door. Be careful, don't make too much noise, and don't use your qi." Languza was immediately happy. He followed Lin Yi to eat and drink well. Finally, it was his turn to show up. Fortunately, Lin Yi specifically told him not to use his chi. Otherwise, if he punched, the power of the mysterious ascension stage was not a joke. It might directly destroy the villa. Boss, don't worry. Just watch me. Languza laughed. He pinched his hands, and the joints made a crackling sound. He walked to the front of the door, and without any posture, he casually punched out. How strong was the body of a serpent dragon? Even if it did not use its true chi, it was still an extremely terrifying existence. Languza had only thrown this punch casually, but when it landed on the red lacquer door, it only let out a muffled sound, causing the entire door to turn into extremely tiny wooden shards that flew out with a whoosh. This was the result of Languza controlling his strength. Otherwise, not only the door, but the wall on the side would probably collapse for a long time. So Ruoguang and Zhou Ruoming both opened their mouths wide. They were dumbfounded. What kind of person was this? He was too violent. It was such a waste of talent not to work in the demolition team. No wonder one person had to eat food for 30 people, and it was all meat. Languza retracted his fist as if nothing had happened. He wanted to take credit from Lin Yi, but thinking about such a trivial thing, he was too embarrassed to say it. So he simply gave up. Who dares to come to the Liang family to make trouble? Do you want to die? After the door was broken, someone immediately roared. It was the man who had just opened the door. And then 4 men in black clothes rushed out together. Zhou Ruoguang was shocked and hurriedly said to Lin Yi, "Hayashi Lin, 2 of the 4 men in black are the people who came to take Liang Ruoqing away. They are all yellow class practitioners. Can your brother deal with them? The 4 of them might even be cultivators." Zhou Ruoming also took a few steps back in fear. These 2 brothers of the Zhou family were really lacking in courage. It was because of this that Lin Yi asked House Zhuang to help the Zhou family instead of taking them in as followers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so clueless about Lin Yi's background. Languza was just thinking that he couldn't ask for credit from Lin Yi for breaking a door, and when he saw 5 people come out at once, he was a little happy. But when he saw that these 5 were all normal weaklings, he lost all interest. He was a mysterious ascended late-stage sea serpent dragon. Bullying normal people like this was too embarrassing. Languza, come back first. Lin Yi didn't want Languza to bully normal people. Yellow class practitioners were no different from normal people. After Languza came back, Lin Yi smiled faintly to the 5. "Sorry I used too much force when I called. I was afraid you guys couldn't hear me." The man and the 4 yellow class cultivators looked at the broken pieces of wood on the ground in fear, and their eyes were filled with horror. Chapter 56-75. Since you have come out to meet people, then go and inform your patriarch to come out. Otherwise, don't blame me for going in and looking for people myself. Lin Yi said faintly. Since the door was broken, it was impossible for the Liang family's patriarch not to come out. The man who came out to answer the door whispered to the 4 black-clothed men, "I will go in and report to the patriarch. You guys keep an eye on these people and don't do anything." The 4 black-clothed men nodded. They were not sure if they would take action now, so this was the best. "Boss, why don't we go in and sit for a while? It's so boring standing here." Languza looked at the small room inside the door. It was enough for 7 or 8 people to rest. These guys were eating, drinking, and playing Fight the Landlord just now. Lin Yi shook his head and said, "No need. Their patriarch will be here soon." The man who answered the door said that he was going to report to the patriarch, but in fact, he was avoiding Lin Yi and the others. He called the people inside and told them about the situation here. Of course, he wouldn't go in and report like before. The buildings here were retro, but the life here was also retro. Therefore, after the patriarch of the Liang family received the call, he had already rushed here. Lin Yi's divine sense could completely grasp all the movements in the villa, so he naturally knew that the patriarch would arrive soon. The 4 black-clothed men looked at Lin Yi and the others nervously. When a middle-aged man came out, they were relieved and bowed respectfully. Patriarch! This white-clothed middle-aged man was the patriarch of the Liang family, Liang Bufan. After seeing Zhou Ruoming, he coldly snorted and said, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be you, a toad, who wants to eat swan meat. Boy, you are very courageous. You actually dare to come to the door. It seems that you like to have your limbs broken and beg on the street, right?" Zhou Ruoming flinched. Then he straightened his back and said loudly, "Uncle Liang, I and Ruoqing really love each other. Why can't you give me a chance?" "A chance? What a joke. Do you think I will give a toad a chance to touch my daughter? If you really want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Liang Bufan laughed coldly and glanced at Languza from the corner of his eyes. "But you're not too stupid, brat. You know to bring a helper when you're here to cause trouble. Unfortunately, do you think you can threaten me just because you found a random cultivator who's trained in physique training? He's so stupid." Languza moved closer to Lin Yi's ear and whispered, "Boss, this idiot is so arrogant. Can I beat him up?" Lin Yi glared at Languza. "With one swipe of your claw, he would be turned into minced meat. What was there to beat?" Languza understood Lin Yi's meaning. He could only smile awkwardly and say no more. Liang Bufan didn't hear what Languza said. With his strength, it was impossible for him to hear what Languza didn't want him to hear. Although he was puzzled, he didn't pay much attention to it. "Go capture them. We'll settle the score with them later." Liang Bufan waved his hand casually and ordered the 4 yellow-rank cultivators to capture them. At this moment, a young girl ran out in a hurry and blocked Liang Bufan's way. "Father, you promised me that you wouldn't make things difficult for Ruoming if you agree to get married. How can you go back on your word?" Ruoqing. So Ruoming was excited when he saw the girl. He wanted to rush over to her, but was stopped by the 4 men in black. Liang Ruoqing turned around and looked at Zhou Ruoming. Her face was filled with sadness and anxiety. She tried her best to signal Zhou Ruoming with her eyes, wanting him to leave quickly. However, Zhou Ruoming was unyielding for once. He rushed over and shouted, "Ruoqing, I will never leave you today." Before he could finish his words, the man in black who stopped him struck his neck with a palm knife. He passed out instantly. Lin Yi could see that the man in black had no intention to hurt Zhou Ruoming. Therefore, he didn't stop him. Such a scene would have a greater impact on Liang Ruoqing, and Lin Yi was happy to see it happen. Speaking of which, these 2 people's names, Ruoming and Ruoqing, were quite compatible. Were they destined to be together? All right, Lin Yi's mind wandered off. Looking closely, Liang Ruoqing, who had tears in her eyes, was indeed a beauty. However, compared to Lin Yi, who was used to beauties like Chu Mengyao, Tang Yun, Shanghai Laner, Huang Xiaotao, Duanmuyu, Lung Lung, etc., she was only passable. She was probably at the same level as Lan Fun. It seemed like he was quite interested in Zhou Ruoming. This kid was quite lucky. Moreover, Liang Ruoqing's temperament was 60 to 70% similar to Tang Yun's. It seemed like Zhou Ruoming really liked this type. Liang Bufan grabbed Liang Ruoqing, who was about to rush over to check on Ruoming, and said coldly, "Ruoqing, don't get it wrong. It's this blind bastard who came to us on his own. It's not Dad, who went looking for trouble with him. Look, the people he brought even broke down our front door." "Then why did you hit him? Why didn't you just let him leave peacefully?" "Dad, let me go and see him." Liang Ruoqing struggled with all her might. Unfortunately, she was no match for a mystic class master. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't move an inch. "If you want this kid to die now, then go over. Don't think that I won't kill him. Liang Bufan suddenly let go of Liang Ruoqing and said coldly. Liang Ruoqing staggered. After she managed to regain her balance, she didn't dare to go over. She knew that Liang Bufan was a man of his words. Dad, let them go. I'll listen to you, okay? If you don't let them go, I'd rather die in front of you. Liang Ruoqing couldn't resist, but she still said resolutely. Liang Bufan grunted and said, How about this? We'll capture them first, and we'll release them after you're married. This is my bottom line. Don't bargain anymore. If you want to die, they'll be buried with you. Liang Ruoqing looked at the unconscious Zhou Ruoming. She had no choice but to give in. After all, being under house arrest was better than dying now. Besides, Liang Ruoqing could still find a chance to meet Zhou Ruoming if they were under house arrest in the Liang's villa. She could even release them secretly. It was meaningless to resist now. Capture them all and tie them up with steel wire. Liang Bufan glanced at Lin, Yi, and the others and ordered indifferently. Steel wire was enough to make a mystic-class master unable to break free. It didn't matter if they were an internal or external martial artist. Now that Zhou Ruoming was in their hands, Liang Bufan didn't think that Lin, Yi, and the others would dare to resist. Even if they did, he, an internal mystic-class master, was enough to deal with them. Chapter 56-76. This time, he came to help Zhou Ruoming marry Liang Ruoqing. Obviously, he couldn't let Liang Ruoqing marry him happily by killing these people. So, Lin could only wait and see. After the 4 people were tied up, they were thrown into a small room in the villa. Zhou Ruoming woke up after being tossed and turned. Zhou Ruoguang complained, Hayashi Lin, you really don't have any face left. Moreover, you are very good at fighting. Why didn't you resist this time? Are you afraid of them? Lin Yi smiled faintly and ignored Zhou Ruoguang. At the same time, he asked Lang Guza to keep quiet and not break the ox tendons on his body. If that happened, it wouldn't be easy to get them back to their original state. Lang Guza didn't care. He just treated it as a game with his boss. He hadn't experienced this since he was young. It was actually quite fun. Ruoming cut him off with a bitter smile. Don't say anything, bro. I'm the one who dragged God Lin into this. If it weren't for me being controlled, God Lin would have been able to leave easily with Brother Lan's strength. What do you mean by implicating? This time, I'm here to help you propose marriage. I have to fulfill my promise. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Zhou Ruoming was indeed different from before. It could be said that he had completely changed. Perhaps it was because he met his true love that he changed. So Ruoguang sneered. You're already tied up like a rice dumpling. What's the point of proposing marriage? You should think about how to leave here alive first. He then turned to Zhou Ruoming. Ruoming, there are plenty of fish in the sea. If this doesn't work, we can only forget about it. We brothers don't have much power now, but we still have a lot of money. It's easy to find a pretty girl. At this moment, Zhou Ruoguang was regretting asking for Lin Yi's help. He thought that Lin Yi would be able to speak in secret. Although a few years had passed and the situation of the noble houses had changed, he should still have some face. Who knew that it would end like this? Live a good life in Songshan. As time went on, his brother would probably forget about Liang Ruoqing. He really was a busybody this time. So Ruoming shook his head. Brother, it's easy to find a pretty girl, but it's not easy to find a girl who is in love with each other. You don't have to say it. Zhou Ruoming, won't want anyone other than Liang Ruoqing. So Ruoguang wanted to say something. He opened his mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. Thinking about the current situation, it wasn't even certain if they could leave alive. What else was there to persuade? It was better to hope that Liang Ruoqing would remember their relationship and secretly let them go. Lang Guza suddenly asked. From what the head of House Liang said, Liang Ruoqing should be getting married soon, right? Zhou Ruoming, if you were given two choices, one is to die and leave with Liang Ruoqing, the other is to give up on Liang Ruoqing and leave by yourself, which would you choose? Zhou Ruoguang thought to himself, wasn't this the current situation? If he could choose, he would definitely let his brother choose to leave. However, Zhou Ruoming said without hesitation, of course I choose to leave with Ruoqing, even if it means death. Is this the so-called relationship? It's so strange. Languza murmured. There was no such thing as feelings in the endless sea. If there was a sea beast that you fancied, as long as you were strong enough, then it was fine. If you were to die, then it was better not to provoke them. He didn't care about them. He was thinking about how to deal with this matter. If he showed his strength and background, of course, he could easily make this good thing happen. But in this case, it might not be the best result. Now that Zhou Ruoming's intention was clear, would Liang Ruoqing also be willing to sacrifice everything for Zhou Ruoming? If it was possible, then Lin Yi would grant them their wish without hesitation. As he was thinking, Lin Yi discovered that Liang Ruoqing secretly took out a seal from her father's study, stamped it on a piece of paper, and quickly came over. As for Liang Bufan, at the moment, he was welcoming a middle-aged man. It seemed that the man was a guest of the Liang family. He had just returned from a business trip, and his strength was at the early stage of Earth class. In the secular world, he was considered a powerful existence. After a few minutes, Liang Ruoqing quickly ran over and said to the two men in black who were guarding the door, I persuaded my father to let them go, and he has agreed. This is the order he wrote, and it has his signature and seal. Take a look. One of the men in black took a look and nodded. It is indeed the handwriting and signature of the head of the family. And the seal is also correct, but why didn't the head of the family directly call to inform us? Lin Yi secretly laughed when he heard this. This wasn't the ancient times, and this wasn't the heavenly island. Everyone had a mobile phone, so who would use a warrant to release people? This Liang Ruoqing was also quite interesting. However, Liang Ruoqing had obviously considered this point. After hearing the words of the man in black, she said calmly, that's because the consecrator is back. Dad is discussing something with the consecrator, so it's not convenient for him to use his phone. That's why I wrote a warrant. Ah, the guest is back, the other man in black said, and quickly put down the phone. Then can't we call the head of the family now to confirm this matter? Liang Ruoqing was displeased. What do you mean? You don't believe me? Lin Yi thought to himself, only a fool would believe you. Who doesn't know that your lover is locked up in there? If it was someone else who said this, it might be possible, but only you, the two of them won't believe it unless the old man personally said it. Miss, this matter is very important. Without the head of the family, it is difficult for us to do it. How about this? Since it is not convenient for the head of the family to answer the phone, then we will personally go to him. Miss, can you wait for a moment? One of the men in black said very respectfully, but this proposal was something that Liang Ruoqing couldn't refuse. If Liang Ruoqing didn't agree, then there was obviously something wrong. If she agreed, then this matter would fall through. Lin Yi was very interested to see Liang Ruoqing's performance, because the soundproofing of this room was good. Zhou Ruoming didn't know that his lover was at the door trying to save him. Okay, you go ahead. I will go in and see them first. Is that okay? Liang Ruoqing said without hesitation. It was also a reasonable request. After all, these two men in black were the subordinates of the Liang family. It was not good to offend Liang Ruoqing too much, so they could only open the door and let her in. Chapter 56-77. Liang Ruoqing looked calm on the surface, but she was very anxious in her heart. There was only a little time left for her. She had to send Zhou Ruoming and the others away before her father, Liang Bufan, realized what was going on. Miss, we'll wait at the door. You don't have to close it, right? One of the men in black was on the phone, and the other said respectfully. It was not so much a discussion as a direct notification to Liang Ruoqing that he was going to do this, in case Liang Ruoqing played any tricks inside. Unfortunately, this guy underestimated Liang Ruoqing's determination. As soon as he finished speaking, Liang Ruoqing directly turned around and said angrily, "What do you mean? Are you going to spy on me? Who gave you the right to treat me like this? Even my father wouldn't talk like this. Are you out of your mind?" The man in black was startled. Liang Ruoqing had always been quite gentle. Although she was a little rebellious and stubborn, she had always been kind to her subordinates. Her sudden outburst was really oppressive. Before he could react, Liang Ruoqing directly slammed the door from the inside and locked it at the same time, in case the two guys opened it secretly again. The man in black calmed down and felt that they couldn't run away. Instead of offending the miss, it was better to turn a blind eye. After closing the door, Liang Ruoqing immediately rushed to Zhou Ruoming, who looked excited. She whispered, "Ruoming, why are you so stupid? Why won't you listen to me? My father is serious this time. This is related to our Liang family. He will never give up on this marriage. I only have one chance to let you go. You must listen to me and leave this place immediately. Don't ever come back." As she spoke, Liang Ruoqing untied the ox tendons on Zhou Ruoming's body. However, the knots of the ox tendons were quite complicated. Liang Ruoqing couldn't untie them immediately. The more anxious she was, the more difficult it was to untie. Instead, it became tighter. Liang Ruoqing was about to cry. She brought a small scissors with her, but there were steel wires in the ox tendons. Her small scissors couldn't cut them at all. "Ruoqing, listen to me. I will never let you marry that guy as a concubine. I won't agree, even if I have to die. Don't worry about me. You must firmly refuse your father. As long as you don't agree, it won't work." So Ruoming was quite calm at this moment, probably because his sweetheart was by his side. He looked a little happy. Lin Yi asked curiously, "Liang Ruoqing is going to marry someone as a concubine? Why haven't I heard you mention it before?" So Ruoming smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know the specifics. I just heard Ruoqing mention it by chance. By the way, Ruoqing, this is Hayashi Lin. I got him into trouble this time. Don't worry about me. Think of a way to send Hayashi Lin out first." Liang Ruoqing glanced at Lin Yi, but she didn't give up on untying Zhou Ruoming first. She just said to Lin Yi apologetically, "I'm sorry, Mr. Lin. I'm very grateful that you can come to help, but I just untied half of Ruoming's. This ox tendon rope was quite complicated. She had just figured out how to untie it. If she gave up now, she would have to start all over again later, so it was a little difficult. Don't worry about me. Untie Hayashi Lin first." So Ruoming quickly shook his head. Lin Yi smiled indifferently and said, "It doesn't matter. You go do what you need to do. Why don't you tell me which family you want to marry?" So Ruoming isn't sure. "Maybe it's someone I know, and he can help you reject this matter." Liang Ruoqing looked at Lin Yi with some disbelief. She felt that if Lin Yi had this kind of ability, he wouldn't be tied up like a dumpling and locked up here. However, with the principle of trying a dead horse as a living horse, Liang Ruoqing still tried to untie the rope and said, "My father wants me to marry Sun Ikai, the young master of the Sun family, but he already has a wife. Don't talk about me being a concubine. Even if he isn't married, I won't marry him." Lin Yi was stunned. "Sun Ikai? Isn't that Sun Jingyi's younger brother?" When he first came to see View Villa Bay, Sun Ikai was still Lin Yi's neighbor. Later, because of his relationship with Sun Jingyi, Lin Yi had always had a good impression of Sun Yikai. This is a very hearty and loyal young man. How come he has already started to force a marriage? Or is he going to be the second wife? Are you sure it's Sun Yikai from the Sun family? I know this kid. He used to be my neighbor. I have never heard that he is so lascivious. He even wants to force a marriage with someone's sweetheart to be the second wife. It's a bit too much. Does his family not care? Lin Yi asked suspiciously. If it was really Sun Yikai, it would be easier. With his face, the Sun family would never say anything and immediately cancel the engagement. Liang Ruoqing was stunned. Then she was overjoyed. She hurried over to untie the beef tendon buckle for Lin Yi. At the same time, she smiled sweetly and said, "Hayashi Lin, do you really know Sun Yikai from the Sun family? Actually, it's not Sun Yikai's fault. He has never seen me, so he doesn't know about this marriage. It was my father who insisted on marrying me to him, so he contacted Sun Yikai's wife and discussed it." Lin Yi was confused. What's going on? Sun Yikai didn't even know that he was going to marry a second wife. And this second wife was arranged by his first wife. Isn't this kid's wife too generous? Moreover, this matter was not suggested by Sun Yikai's wife, but by Liang Bufan. Lin Yi had always thought that it was some big family who used their power to bully others and kidnap women. He didn't expect that it was Liang Bufan who was shamelessly selling his daughter for glory. Could it be that Liang Ruoqing wasn't his biological daughter? Seeing that Liang Ruoqing was trying hard to untie the beef tendon buckle, Lin Yi was too embarrassed to continue pretending in case it was difficult to say when the time came. He directly transformed his body into the spirit body and easily got rid of the beef tendon. Liang Ruoqing only felt that her hands were light. The buckle was still the same, but the whole beef tendon was on the ground. Lin Yi was already standing on the side with ease. "I know the bone shrinking skill." Lin Yi saw that Liang Ruoqing was staring at him blankly, so he made up some nonsense in a serious manner, which could be considered as dodging the question. So Ruoqing was overjoyed and said, "Hayashi Lin is indeed Hayashi Lin. It turns out that you already have a card up your sleeve." So Ruoguang also felt that he had underestimated Lin Yi before. It turned out that the reason why Lin Yi didn't resist was that he had a way to get rid of it at any time. Languza saw that Lin Yi was gesturing at him, and so he pulled hard as well. The thick rope made of cow tendons and steel made a snapping sound. The Zhou brothers turned their heads to look and were all stunned. Chapter 5678. So Ruoqing and his brother didn't know that they had inadvertently discovered the truth. Languza was indeed a non-human. He was a genuine mutant sea dragon. Amazing! So you guys can escape at any time. Liang Ruoqing murmured in a daze. Then she became happy. Zhou Ruoqing had such a powerful friend to help him. Moreover, he knew someone from the Sun family. Her marriage should be settled smoothly. Lin Yi signaled Languza to tear off the Zhou Ruoqing and his brother's tendons. Then he continued to ask Liang Ruoqing, "Do you know why Sun Yikai's wife wants to marry him a concubine?" Liang Ruoqing shook her head and said, "I don't know, but the marriage will be held the day after tomorrow. If you can really talk to the Sun family, then please help me and Ruoqing." Lin Yi didn't answer Liang Ruoqing's question. Instead, he turned to look at the door. Liang Bufan had already received the notice. He angrily rushed over and was now ready to kick the door down. With a loud bang, the door was kicked open by Liang Bufan. With a thought, Lin Yi moved the door slightly and flew to a place where there was no one. "Liang Ruoqing, do you really want these brats to die here? How dare you forge my handwriting and write some warrant? You even stole my seal. Are you trying to rebel? Liang Bufan roared as he rushed in. He wasn't surprised that Lin Yi and the others had escaped. He only thought that Liang Ruoqing had untied them. Lin Yi already knew the ins and outs of the matter. He also confirmed that Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing were truly in love. So, there was no need to delay this matter. Languza received Lin Yi's gaze and immediately stepped in front of Liang Bufan, preventing him from getting close to Liang Ruoqing. Although he did not reveal his aura, the natural pressure of the serpent dragon made Liang Bufan, who was facing him, slightly shocked. He stopped in his tracks in doubt. All along, Liang Bufan thought that Languza was just a physical expert who practiced physique kung fu and was absolutely no match for him. However, when he faced Languza, he found that he had no confidence at all. I know all the members of the Sun family. I'll tell them about Liang Ruoqing. You don't have to worry about offending them. Lin Yi walked to Languza's side and said lightly to Liang Bufan. Liang Bufan felt a little guilty in front of Languza. However, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with Lin Yi. So he turned his head and laughed. I thought you were going to say something else. You actually said that you can make decisions for the Sun family? Who do you think you are? You're just a nobody. Believe it or not, I'll kill you here. Although Languza made Liang Bufan feel a little afraid, he didn't have to worry because he had an Earth-rank expert behind him. So, he naturally spoke in an extremely tough manner. Lin Yi shook his head lightly. I don't believe you. Liang Bufan was stunned. What else could he do if Liang Bufan didn't believe him? Would he really kill Lin Yi? Big brother, this old fellow actually dared to say that he would kill you. Is he tired of living? Why don't you let me kill him? Languza's face was filled with disdain for Liang Bufan as he requested Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand to indicate that he shouldn't interrupt. Then he said to Liang Bufan, you said that you would kill me here. I don't believe you. You can try. I said that I can solve the problem of the Sun family. You can let me try if you don't believe me. If it wasn't for the fact that Liang Bufan would soon become Zhou Ruoming's father-in-law, Lin Yi really wanted to ask Languza to kill him. Liang Bufan was even willing to sell his daughter. It wouldn't be a loss to kill him. Liang Bufan was a little hesitant. He was afraid of Languza, but he was only Lin Yi's follower. Moreover, Lin Yi said that he could solve the problem of the Sun family. If it was true, then he really couldn't afford to offend him. After considering the consequences, Liang Bufan said, since you've put it that way, I'll give you a chance. Let's go to the Sun clan now. I'd like to see how you're going to solve this problem. Otherwise, you won't be able to come out after you go in. Liang Bufan had no choice but to force Liang Ruoqing to marry Sun Yikai. As a new family, the Liang family would soon be trampled by others if they couldn't unite with the Sun family through marriage. However, if Lin Yi was really at the same level as the Sun family, or even a higher level force, then it wouldn't be a big deal to dissolve the marriage with the Sun family. It would be the same if he could get close to Lin Yi. However, although Liang Bufan thought so in his heart, his tone was still sarcastic. His IQ was a little low to mock a person who might want to rely on him. When Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing heard that Liang Bufan agreed to bring Lin Yi and the others to the Sun family, they looked at each other and saw the excitement and hope in each other's eyes. As long as Lin Yi could solve this problem perfectly, they might be able to stay together forever. Lin Yi didn't care about Liang Bufan's words at all. He just raised his hand and gestured for Liang Bufan to quickly lead the way. Compared to solving the marriage between Liang Ruoqing and Sun Yikai, Lin Yi hoped to see Sun Jingyi as soon as possible. Therefore, he didn't want to waste more time arguing with a small figure like Liang Bufan. After a while, the three cars rushed down the mountain together and headed to the neighboring city, where the Sun family was located. Although the Sun family was located in the neighboring city, it was actually not far from the Liang family. It only took about half an hour to drive, and they soon arrived at the destination. When Linny got out of the car, he used his divine sense to scan the Sun family's villa, but he didn't find Sun Jingyi and Sun Ikai. It seemed that they weren't at home, and there didn't seem to be anyone familiar in the villa. If Liang Bufan hadn't pressed the doorbell with certainty, Lin Yi would have suspected that the Sun family had moved away. After all, although this villa was luxurious with a garden and a swimming pool, it was still a little too low-key compared to the Sun family's current status. Hello, I'm Liang Bufan, from the Liang family in Anhuang City. I want to see Patriarch Sunday. Is it convenient now? Liang Bufan pressed the doorbell personally. After the call was connected, he said to the camera with a smile on his face. A middle-aged woman's voice came from the doorbell intercom device. Oh, it's Mr. Liang. I'm sorry, but the eldest miss has gone out. May I ask if Mr. Liang has an appointment with the eldest miss in advance? No, I'm just here to visit temporarily. Since Patriarch Sun isn't here, may I ask if young Master Sun or young Madam Sun are at home? Liang Bufan hurriedly waved his hand to deny it. Although the other party might just be a servant of the Sun family, the Prime Minister's doorstep was a 7th grade official. He didn't dare to offend anyone from the Sun family. Chapter 5679. Liang Bufan breathed a sigh of relief. He had been contacting Mrs. Sun all the time, so he was relieved to hear that she was here. Although he also wanted to meet the Sun siblings, he could avoid the embarrassment of Zhou Ruoming since they were not at home. Lin Yi mainly came to see Sun Jingyi, but he was disappointed that Sun Jingyi was not at home. Fortunately, they had arrived at the Sun family's house, and Sun Jingyi would come back at night. Now, they should meet Sun Ikai's wife first and solve the problem of Liang watching. 2 or 3 minutes later, the middle-aged woman's voice sounded again. Mr. Liang, Mrs. Sun asked you to come in. If you are not an important person, please wait outside. Yes, I understand. Thank you. After Liang Bufan said that, the iron gate in front of him opened slowly. Lin Yi led Languza and the Zhou brothers into the house. Liang Ruoqing also followed Zhou Ruoming. Liang Bufan hurried to stop them. Hey, didn't you hear that if you are not an important person, you can wait outside? You and Ruoqing can go in with me. The others can wait in the car. Liang Bufan pointed at Lin Yi and Liang Ruoqing. Then he signaled the people who came with him to keep an eye on the others and not let them make trouble. No matter whether Lin Yi had the face to solve the Sun family's marriage, Liang Bufan couldn't bring the Zhou brothers into the house. Was he humiliating Mrs. Sun? He didn't have the guts to do that. Lin Yi nodded to Languza and the Zhou brothers. This matter was actually very simple. It was okay to let them wait for the time being. Anyway, it would be solved soon. Liang Ruoqing wanted to stay outside with Zhou Ruoming, but Liang Bufan was worried. It would be troublesome if they suddenly ran away when he went in to discuss business. It was better to separate Liang Ruoqing and Zhou Ruoming first. Liang Bufan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Lin Yi had agreed. He immediately led the two of them into the Sun family's villa. The door of the living room was already open, and a dignified middle-aged woman was waiting at the door. Sister-in-law Xiang, we meet again. How have you been? Liang Bufan smiled and greeted the middle-aged woman. As the head of a new aristocratic family, there was no need for him to greet her like this. However, this Sister Xiang was brought here by young Madam Sun's maiden family. She was definitely her trusted aide and the second housekeeper of the Sun family. Liang Bufan did not dare to treat her as a servant. Sister Xiang didn't look special. She just smiled and bowed, slightly. Mr. Liang, please. Young madam is already waiting. Originally, sister-in-law Xiang had always called her Mississippi. However, after she married into the Sun family, she had to use the title of young madam. So now she was very used to the identity of the Sun family. Liang Bufan had been here several times. Most of the time, it was to see young Madam Sunday. It was also Sister Xiang who received him. So although they were not familiar, they were not strangers. When sister-in-law Xiang came over, she also bowed slightly. Her etiquette was impeccable. Lin Yi also nodded in response. After entering the living room, the young woman on the sofa stood up and greeted them with a smile. She must be Sun Yikai's wife. She was beautiful and had a gentle temperament. She didn't look like a bully at all. Liang Bufan took a few steps forward and said with a smile, "Young Madam Sun, I'm here to disturb you again. Uncle Liang, you're too polite. You're going to be our elder soon, so there's no need to disturb us. I wonder why you're here today. The wedding is the day after tomorrow. Did something happen? Even Sister Ruoqing is here." Young Madam Sun greeted Liang Ruoqing first, and then said to Liang Bufan with a smile. As for Lin Yi, it was not convenient for her to ask, so she could only wait for Liang Bufan to introduce him. Liang Ruoqing snorted. She wanted to say that she was not his sister, but she was worried that she would mess things up, so she could only endure it for now. Liang Bufan smiled awkwardly and said, "Here's the thing. This little brother is a friend of Ruoqing's friend. He said that he knows young Madam Sun, so he asked me to bring him here to meet young Madam Sunday. I don't know if young Madam has heard of him. His name is Lin Yi." Lin Yi glanced at Liang Bufan and said, "Lightly, don't call me little brother. I'm not familiar with you, so don't call me so intimately. I'm not worthy of being your friend." Liang Bufan's face suddenly turned red. He wanted to fall out with Lin Yi, but he couldn't do it in front of young Madam Sunday. Young Madam Sun looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Obviously, she didn't expect Lin Yi to be so rude. After thinking about it, she said, "Mr. Lin, do you know Yikai? I'm sorry, but I haven't heard him mention you before. How did you and Yikai meet?" Lin Yi didn't have a bad impression of young Madam Sunday, judging from her words and actions. She wasn't an unreasonable person, so he said with a smile, "Yikai used to be my neighbor, and we had a good relationship." If Sun Yikai was here, he would definitely add, "Then I treated you as my brother-in-law, and our relationship became even better." "I see. Yikai will be very happy to see you, Mr. Lin." Young Madam Sun had a happy expression on her face. It seemed that she was really happy that Sun Yikai could meet his old friend, but she didn't ask about Lin Yi's identity at all. Liang Bufan smiled a little awkwardly and said, "Young Madam Sun, don't worry about him. He's just an idler, and he's just here to join in the fun. Let's discuss the details of the day after tomorrow." Young Madam Sun obviously hadn't heard of Lin Yi's name, which meant that this guy was probably not an important person in Sun Yikai's heart. Liang Bufan felt that he was too stupid to bring Lin Yi to the Sun family. It was obvious that he was looking for trouble. What he didn't know was that the reason why Sun Yikai didn't mention Lin Yi was that he didn't want Sun Jingyi to hear it and feel sad. In fact, in Sun Yikai's heart, Lin Yi was even more important than Sun Jingyi. Young Madam Sun didn't mean to ignore Lin Yi because of Liang Bufan's words. She still smiled and said to Lin Yi, "Mr. Lin, please wait for a while. Yikai will be back soon. When the time comes, you two old friends will meet and have a drink and chat together." After speaking to Lin Yi, she turned to Liang Bufan and said, "Uncle Liang, do you have any questions about the arrangements for the day after tomorrow?" Although this time we've treated Sister Ruaching badly and can't hold a grand wedding for her, we've discussed the procedures. Although we won't have a big banquet, the closest guests will still come. Chapter 5680. A Genius in a Second Remember Love. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. At this time, Linny said indifferently, Mrs. Sun, Ikai, and I call each other brothers, so I'll call you sister-in-law. I heard that you arranged the marriage between Liang Ruaching and Ikai didn't know about it. Is that true? From Sun Jingyi's point of view, Linny was right to say that he and Sun Ikai were brothers. Wasn't the wife of his brother-in-law a real sister-in-law? However, Liang Bufan didn't know that when he heard Lin Yi's words, he immediately changed his expression and said, Lin, who are you? How dare you call young madam sister-in-law? You don't know what you're talking about. Get out now. If he could take the opportunity to drive Lin Yi away, Liang Bufan would be more relieved lest Linny made any more trouble. In the end, he would have to clean up the mess. Young Madam Sun was a little surprised. She didn't know whether it was because of Lin Yi calling her sister-in-law or because of Lin Yi's sudden question. Seeing Liang Bufan was a little angry, she hurriedly reached out to show that it didn't matter. Uncle Liang, don't be angry. Mr. Lin and Ikai are friends, so it's only right for him to call me sister-in-law. But why does Mr. Lin also care about this marriage? The day after tomorrow is the wedding. Why don't you stay and attend it? Young Madam Sun didn't answer Lin Yi's question directly, but it was equivalent to acquiescing. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said, I don't think there's a need for the wedding. In addition to meeting Sun Ikai, I came here to tell him that Liang Ruaching will not marry him because Liang Ruaching already has someone she likes. Young Madam Sun's self-restraint was good, but this time her expression changed a little. She suddenly turned her head to look at Liang Bufan. Liang Bufan hated Lin Yi to death, but now he could only smile and say, Young Madam Sun, don't worry about him. I don't know where this guy came from. He's so boring. How dare he interfere in a marriage? I'll send him out now. Patriarch Liang, what exactly is going on? Could it be that Mr. Lin is Sister Ruaching's sweetheart? Young Madam Sun put away her smile and directly replaced uncle with patriarch. Obviously, she was quite dissatisfied with the development of this matter. Liang Bufan was a mystic class master, but his forehead was already dripping with sweat. He could only blame himself for being blinded by greed. He knew that Lin Yi was here to mess things up, but he still foolishly brought him to the Sun family. It seems that sister-in-law doesn't know about this either. I'll explain it briefly then. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He had a general idea of what was going on. For some reason, Sun Ikai's wife wanted to find a concubine for Sun Ikai. It was most likely a melodramatic plot of infertility. Then, she leaked the news to Liang Bufan. Liang Bufan, who wholeheartedly wanted to curry favor with the Sun family, immediately contacted Sun Ikai's wife and said that Liang Ruaching was an ignorant girl who admired Sun Ikai. Both parties hit it off, and the marriage was set. In the process, both parties probably didn't know about this news. After that, Liang Ruaching ran away from the marriage, met Zhou Ruoming, and was captured. Then Lin Yi intervened and explained it to them face to face. Young Madam Sun listened to Lin Yi's story of Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruaching, and her expression didn't look good. As for Liang Bufan, he had a headache. After a few minutes of silence in the living room, young Madam Sun said slowly, Mr. Lin, I know what you said, but the wedding has been set, and the most important relatives and friends of our Sun family have already arrived. It would be a big mistake to cancel the wedding, so we can only make the best of it. The wedding must be held as scheduled. I believe that Ikai is much more outstanding than Zhou Ruoming, Sister Ruoqing will definitely fall in love with Ikai after spending some time with him. Liang Ruoqing couldn't help saying, "That's impossible. I only have Ruoming in my heart. No matter how outstanding your son Ikai is, I won't fall in love with him." Young Madam Sun's face was as cold as frost, and she was no longer as gentle as before. She completely ignored Liang Ruoqing's words and said to Liang Bufan, "Master Liang, the wedding will be held as scheduled. The only reason why the bride can't be present is because the Liang family has been exterminated. I don't think there will be such a tragic situation, right?" Liang Bufan suddenly trembled and felt a chill spread from the bottom of his heart. Young Madam Sun, who had always been gentle and gentle, was so imposing when she was angry. Lin Yi thought that Sun Ikai's wife wasn't simple after all. It was no wonder that she would go behind Sun Ikai's back and get him a second wife. Although this little woman was not a cultivator, her superior aura was definitely more oppressive than that of an ordinary cultivator. Liang Bufan's cowardly look was enough to tell. Don't worry, young madam. The wedding will be held as scheduled. Our Liang family has the Sun family as our in-laws. How could we be exterminated? Ha 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 ha. Young madam, you sure know how to joke." Liang Bufan secretly wiped his forehead and guaranteed with a hollow laugh. Young Madam Sun's expression softened slightly. She was obviously satisfied with Liang Bufan's answer. However, Lin Yi ignored her threat and asked calmly, "I forgot to ask, may I know your surname, sister-in-law? Are you the daughter of an aristocratic family?" "My surname is Wu. My name is Wu Qingli. I'm just a little girl from a small, newly established aristocratic family, the Wu family. Please excuse me, Master Lin." Young Madam's son, Wu Qingli, was already displeased with Lin Yi. However, considering that Sun Ikai might really be acquainted with Lin Yi, she still spoke patiently. It was another family that Lin Yi had never heard of before. It seemed that the structure of aristocratic families had changed a lot. He wondered if Sun Ikai and Wu Qingli had gotten together because of a marriage alliance. However, this was not important. Lin Yi did not care about the newly emerged aristocratic family. After learning about Wu Qingli's identity, he smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, you're only thinking about the Liang family. Don't tell me you haven't thought about your own family? Who knows, this wedding might not be a good thing for the Wu family. Of course, it doesn't matter which guests you've invited. They can come to see me even if they don't attend the wedding. I'm sure they'll be very willing." "You're threatening me." Wu Qingli's expression changed, and she clenched her slender jade-like hands. Unfortunately, she was not a cultivator. Even if she was nothing in front of Lin Yi. Chapter 5681. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, Shua.net, providing you with wonderful novel reading. However, Lin Yi felt that the new aristocratic families were in a mess. It was obvious that the Cultivator Alliance didn't care about these things. It seemed that he had to find time to let them reorganize themselves. When the two men who looked like bodyguards heard Wu Qingli's raised voice, they immediately rushed out from the small room next to them. Their strength was above the earth rank. To Liang Bufan, they were like mountains, but to Lin Yi, they were just slightly stronger ants in a group of ants. In the end, they were still ants. "Love go little, say, Netku, young madam, do you need us to ask them to leave?" The two of them came out and guarded Wu Qingli on both sides as they asked in a low voice. Wu Qingli hesitated for a moment before saying to Lin Yi, "Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, but the Sun family doesn't welcome you. Please leave now. Also, we don't want to see you at Ikai's wedding. That's all I have to say. Take care." After saying that, she waved at Lin Yi, and the two bodyguards walked over, ready to force him out. Lin Yi, on the other hand, leaned back on the sofa and spoke in a completely relaxed manner. "Sister-in-law, I don't think you can make the decision on this. Why don't we talk about it after Sun Yikai comes back?" Wu Qingli sneered. Although Sun Yikai was convinced by her, it didn't mean that there were no hidden dangers. If Lin Yi's words caused Sun Yikai to cancel the wedding, it would be a pity. Ask Mr. Lin to leave. Under Wu Qingli's order, the two Earth rank experts sped up and were about to directly drag Lin Yi out from the sofa. However, as soon as they moved, an invisible force instantly enveloped them. They didn't even have time to react. And the two Earth rank experts were directly lying on the ground, unable to move. "Sister-in-law, your two subordinates' way of asking people to leave is very special. Are they sending people off by prostrating on the ground? If I don't leave, will they not get up?" Lin Yi smiled, as if nothing had happened. It was as if the actions of these two Earth-class experts had nothing to do with him. Everyone in the living room stared at Lin Yi, mouths agape. Just who the hell was this guy? He didn't even move his hand, and two Earth rank experts were already lying on the ground. Just how powerful was he? Heaven rank. Liang Bufan was in a difficult position. When he was in the villa, he thought that it would be a good idea to rely on Lin Yi. However, he overturned that idea and even mocked Lin Yi just now. As a result, Liang Bufan could not understand the strength that Lin Yi had displayed. It was no wonder that he had always felt that Lin Yi wasn't that great. It turned out that Lin Yi's level was too high, and he was someone that he couldn't see through. Wu Qingli's pretty face turned red and white. The two Earth rank experts were prostrating on the ground, just like that. She finally understood that Lin Yi really wasn't threatening her, and he was completely capable of doing whatever he said. If they continued with the wedding, it might really bring trouble to the Wu clan that they couldn't bear. Since he was such an incredible figure, the Sun clan's friends obviously wouldn't attend the wedding and would take the initiative to visit. Who wouldn't want to get to know such an incredible expert? Lin Yi waved his hand and said, "Go to the side, don't make it so grand. Your young master will be coming in soon." Sun Yikai had indeed returned. Lin Yi's divine senses saw that his car had just entered the villa, so he let the two Earth rank experts go. When the two fellows felt that their bodies were loosened, they immediately scrambled to the side and looked at Lin Yi with fear and reverence. The people at the side might also be shocked, but it definitely wasn't as deep as the two of them who were personally in the situation. It was a feeling of powerlessness that was filled with despair. It was like facing a predestined fate, and no matter how one struggled, it was impossible to change it. "Qingli, there are guests today. It turns out that the Liang clan's clan head is here." Sun Yikai saw someone when he entered the door, so he smiled and greeted. Lin Yi was leaning against the back of the sofa, and his back was facing Sun Yikai's direction. Therefore, Sun Yikai didn't recognize him for a moment. Liang Bufan smiled at Sun Yikai awkwardly, but he didn't know how to react. Logically speaking, Sun Yikai would be his son-in-law the day after tomorrow, and their relationship should be very intimate. However, Sun Yikai addressed him as Liang clan head, and it was obvious that he wasn't very concerned about this marriage. Sun Yikai didn't notice it when he first came in, but now he noticed that Wu Qingli's expression wasn't right. He immediately asked with some concern, "Qingli, what's wrong? Do you feel any discomfort?" Wu Qingli forced a smile and said, "No, Yikai, come here. This Mr. Lin said that he was your former neighbor." Judging from the strength that Lin Yi had shown just now, Wu Qingli knew that this marriage was most likely going to be canceled. Although the Sun clan had a high status, and they also had experts at the heaven stage great perfection. It was obviously not worth it to offend an expert like Lin Yi for the sake of a mere Liang watching. My neighbor? Sun Yikai turned around suspiciously. At the same time as he looked at Lin Yi also turned his head and revealed a faint smile. Sun Yikai was immediately stunned, and then he jumped up and shouted, "Brother-in-law, it's really you. You're back." Brother-in-law? Except for Lin Yi, everyone present fell into a daze again. What the hell was going on? Sun Yikai only had one elder sister, and that was the current head of the Sun clan, Sun Jingyi. But no one had heard that Sun Jingyi was already married. If Sun Yikai hadn't said it himself, they wouldn't have believed that Lin Yi was Sun Jingyi's husband, even if they were beaten to death. Lin Yi casually greeted him. "Yikai, long time no see. I heard that you're going to marry a second wife, so I came to see." Sun Yikai suddenly blushed and laughed dryly. "Brother-in-law, don't laugh at me. It's very complicated. I'll tell you later. I'll call my elder sister first. You don't know how much my elder sister misses you. I don't even dare to mention your name, for fear that she will secretly wipe her tears if she hears it." Lin Yi suddenly felt guilty. Sun Jingyi could be said to be a very special one among his many confidants. If it weren't for Sun Jingyi, perhaps Lin Yi would have been killed by his enemies because of his injuries. Now, there would be no mighty Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi didn't spend much time together. So this time Lin especially wanted to come to see her. Chapter 5682. A Genius in a Second Remember Love. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Sun Yikai turned around and sat next to Lin Yi. He said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, wait a moment. My sister will be back soon. Are you hungry? Why don't we eat something first?" He suddenly remembered what Lin Yi had just mentioned. Liang Bufan and Liang Ruoqing were also watching. Sun Yikai said, "Master Liang and Miss Liang, let's eat together. We will be a family in the future. There's no need to be so polite." Lin Yi pointed at Liang Ruoqing and said, "Do you know her?" Sun Yikai scratched his head and said, "I've seen pictures, but it's the first time I've met her in person. What's wrong?" "What's wrong? You haven't even met her once. How dare you marry her as a concubine? Don't you know that she might already have a boyfriend?" Lin Yi said angrily. He regarded Sun Yikai as one of his own, so he didn't like this kind of thing. If it had been someone unrelated, Lin Yi would have been slapped to death by Languza a long time ago, who had the patience to talk so much nonsense. Sun Yikai was shocked and said in a low voice, "Brother-in-law, is this your new?" Lin Yi was speechless. This brat's imagination was quite wild. "I like your sister. Oh, no, your sister. I see that you don't really care about this marriage anymore. Just cancel it and give the lovers a chance." Lin Yi glared at Sun Yikai, not bothering to explain. He made the decision right away. "Okay, I'll listen to you." Sun Yikai nodded without hesitation. His natural look made Wu Qingli dumbfounded again. Sun Yikai looked at Wu Qingli and suddenly pulled Lin Yi's arm and said, "Boss, I remember that your medical skills are outstanding. You are a hidden miracle doctor. This time, you must help me." Lin Yi glanced at Wu Qingli thoughtfully and nodded. "Speak." It seemed that his guess was right. The root of everything was Wu Qingli. Originally, Lin Yi could know Wu Qingli's problem with a sweep of his divine sense, but he swept Sun Yikai's wife like this. Even if she didn't know, Lin Yi himself would be embarrassed. Sweeping with his divine sense was much clearer than seeing with his eyes. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yi would not casually sweep other people's bodies. That was something that only a pervert would do. Sun Yikai looked at Liang Bufan and Liang Ruoqing, and then he said to sister-in-law Xiang, "Sister-in-law Xiang, go and prepare the dishes first. We'll have dinner in a while. Brother-in-law, come with me." Lin waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Just say it. They can't hear you." For people in the secular world, Lin Yi could set up a layer of true qi barrier to completely block the transmission of sound. Even if they wanted to eavesdrop, it was impossible. Sun Yikai was stunned, but he still believed Lin Yi's words. So he said, "Qingli has a terminal illness. If she maintains her current state, she can live for more than 10 years. If she gets pregnant, she won't live more than 3 months. That's why she is anxious to find a concubine for me. She wants our Sun family to have a descendant. Brother-in-law, you know that sister will not marry anyone other than you, but you won't be able to have a child for a while." So, sure enough, it was like this. Lin had already expected it, so he wasn't surprised. However, he had never heard of such a terminal illness. Unexpectedly, pregnancy could cause premature death. "Have you given your treatment quota to sister-in-law?" Lin asked casually. The Sun family was a famous healing family in the cultivation world. When it came to doctors, everyone in the Sun family was a miracle doctor. Sun Yikai smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, but Qingli is not a cultivator, so the effect is not very good. It only prolonged her life for 5 years. Otherwise, she would only have 5 years left." "Okay, I'll take sister-in-law's pulse later." Lin nodded and agreed. No matter how Sun Yikai and Wu Qingli got together, they were really thinking about each other. This kind of relationship was exactly the same as Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing. Even if it wasn't for Sun Yikai, Lin would have lent a helping hand. Sun Yikai thanked him excitedly. He knew very well how good Lin Yi's medical skills were. If there was anyone who could prolong Wu Qingli's life, it would be Lin Yi. Although he was very eager for Lin Yi to treat Wu Qingli, Sun Yikai didn't rush Lin Yi. Instead, he accompanied Lin Yi and told him about the changes in the structure of the aristocratic families. The members of the aristocratic families in the Cultivator Alliance, because of the opening of the Heavenly Island, worked even harder to cultivate. They wanted to find a chance to open the Heavenly Island again and enter it. Therefore, most of the sects and aristocratic families entered a state of seclusion. The tentacles that originally extended into the secular world were withdrawn, and the industries and real estate were transferred to others. At most, they would leave a part of their assets to invest in the financial market and find professional investment managers to operate the capital. Although the Cultivator Alliance was still the most powerful force in the secular world, because those who were in seclusion, and those who were not were in the investigation center, they had no time to care about other things. Therefore, many new aristocratic families emerged. These aristocratic families were second and third-rate in the past. However, because most of the former aristocratic families and hidden aristocratic families had gone into seclusion to cultivate and retire from the society, the old aristocratic families, like the Sun family, had also joined the Cultivator Alliance, which was also known as the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. They went to investigate the investigation center and the reopening of the Heavenly Island. Therefore, it was normal for these small aristocratic families to emerge. After all, there would always be new talents in every generation. This was very normal. On the other hand, Liang Bufan's aristocratic family was slightly weaker. Even among the new aristocratic families, it was considered to be at the bottom. The two of them chatted for 7 or 8 minutes before they heard the sharp sound of brakes coming from outside the villa. Without looking, they knew that Sun Jingyi had returned. Lin Yi casually removed the soundproof barrier and stood up to look at the door. He saw a beautiful woman in a light-colored professional suit rushing in like a gust of wind. It was Sun Jingyi, whom he had not seen for a long time. When they first met, Sun Jingyi deliberately pretended to be mature. Now that a few years had passed, she had really matured. The characteristics that attracted Lin Yi back then had now been mastered by her. After seeing Lin Yi, Sun Jingyi, who was in a hurry just now, suddenly stopped moving. In an instant, she became unhurried and seductive as she walked toward Lin Yi. "Yo, isn't this my little lover? How rare. Come, let me give you a hug." Sun Jingyi smiled like a flower as she walked over slowly. However, her words made Lin Yi blush a little. There were so many people watching. It wasn't like this on TV. Couldn't they learn from others? First, they looked at it in disbelief. Then their tears naturally flowed down. Then they choked with sobs and threw themselves into their arms to cry bitterly. How good was that? Chapter 56-83. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, say net, provide you with wonderful novels to read. Sun Jingyi's body was slightly stiff and immediately seemed to melt. She softly clung to Lin Yi as if she wanted to integrate herself into him. "I'm back," Lin Yi whispered in Sun Jingyi's ear. "I missed you so much." Sun Jingyi's tears gushed out in an instant, but they were stuck to Lin Yi's chest, but all of them fell on his clothes. "Sweet mouth and smooth tongue, you are really a master of coaxing your lover." Sun Jingyi hugged Lin Yi tightly and said with a smile, while crying. Everyone in the living room turned their heads and pretended not to see. This was the current head of the Sun family, and her little lover being intimate. It was not good to see it, right? After a while, Sun Jingyi reluctantly left Lin Yi's arms. It was not because she was worried about the people next to her, but because Lin Yi was going to treat Wu Qingli first. With a slight circulation of true qi, the tears on his chest evaporated. Lin Yi took Sun Jingyi back to the sofa and sat down. Then he waved to Wu Qingli and said, "Sister-in-law, come here, let me take your pulse." Sun Yikai had already exaggerated Lin Yi's miraculous medical skills to Wu Qingli, telling her that Lin Yi's methods of reviving the dead and regenerating flesh and bones were all at the most basic level. Wu Qingli's illness was nothing more than a simple matter. Although Wu Qingli didn't quite believe this kind of truth that sounded like a lie, she still obediently came to Lin Yi's side and sat down. She stretched out her left wrist and took Lin Yi's pulse. Lin Yi's fingers touched it, and true qi had already gently flowed into Wu Qingli's body, quickly checking her body for hidden dangers. After just a few dozen seconds, Lin Yi had already found the problem. What made Lin Yi a little strange was that Wu Qingli's so-called terminal illness did not seem to be inborn, but more like it was done by someone. In this case, it could also explain why Lin Yi had never heard of this terminal illness before. With Lin Yi's means, dealing with such a small matter was as easy as flipping his hand. In the blink of an eye, he cleaned up the problem and then withdrew his palm. "Sister-in-law, how long has it been since you discovered this illness?" Lin Yi asked without batting an eyelid. He wanted to confirm whether Wu Qingli's matter would involve the Sun family. If so, he must uproot the mastermind behind the scenes to prevent Sun Jingyi from being threatened. "It's been 5 or 6 years. Is it difficult to treat?" "It's okay. Anyway, all the doctors who have seen it said it's not easy to treat it." Wu Qingli said with some disappointment. Lin Yi took her pulse for less than a minute. Although she felt as if there was a warm current circulating in her body, Wu Qingli did not know that she had been cured. She only thought that Lin Yi could do nothing about it. "Well, it's really not easy to treat, so I directly crushed the virus. You won't have any problems in the future," Lin Yi said easily. Hearing that Wu Qingli had been suffering for 5 or 6 years, this matter basically had nothing to do with the Sun family. Even if the mastermind behind the scenes refused to let Wu Qingli go, he had to consider the power of the Sun family now, so Lin Yi didn't need to worry. "You mean I'm cured? When Wu Qingli heard the first half of the sentence, she was still a little sad, but then she widened her eyes and looked at Lin Yi incredulously. In less than a minute, he solved the terminal illness that all the doctors were helpless about. This Lin Yi was not bragging, and what Sun Yikai said just now was not bragging. Sun Yikai completely believed in Lin Yi. He immediately jumped up and hugged Wu Qingli. Great, Qingli, we can rest assured in the future. Next year, we can hold a son. Damn, what are you saying? Wu Qingli's pretty face blushed. She felt that she really didn't feel that uncomfortable before. Was it really cured? Looking at Sun Yikai, who was as excited as a child, she suddenly turned her head and snorted. You only know how to hold a son. Can't you have a daughter? Ha 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 ha. Of course, you can have a daughter who is as powerful as my sister, Sun Yikai said with a laugh. After that, he kissed Wu Qingli's face hard. Liang Bufan and Liang Ruoqing were embarrassed. They didn't hear the conversation between Sun Yikai and Lin Yi at all, so they didn't know what was going on at the moment. However, Sun Yikai had just promised Lin Yi to cancel the wedding, so Liang Bufan didn't know what to do now. Liang Ruoqing was happy. It seemed that there was no problem between her and Zhou Ruoming. After celebrating with Wu Qingli in his arms for a while, Sun Yikai remembered that he wanted to thank Lin Yi. However, in his opinion, it was his brother-in-law who helped his brother-in-law. They were a family, so there was no need to be polite. At this time, Sun Yikai also remembered that the father and daughter of the Liang family were still here. He immediately said to Liang Bufan, apologetically, Master Liang, I'm sorry. Qingli and I had some misunderstandings before, which caused some trouble for your daughter. Fortunately, it's not too late to stop the horse in the nick of time. Let's pretend that there was no wedding. We'll try our best to make up for it later. Before Liang Bufan said anything, Liang Ruoqing said, there's no need for any compensation. Young Master Sun and young Madam can get along well. That's the best compensation. I can see that you love each other deeply. I hope that you can grow old together and have hundreds of children and thousands of grandchildren. Wu Qingli said with a blushing face, Thank you, Sister Ruoqing. I was wrong before and offended you. You must forgive me. May all the lovers in the world get married. Liang Ruoqing also smiled like a flower. She nodded and said, Thank you, sister. May all the lovers in the world get married. Lin Yi turned his head to look at Jingyi, and Jingyi turned her head as well. Both of their eyes were filled with tenderness, and there was no need for words to be spoken. Although it was a pity that Liang Bufan didn't get any compensation, he had taken the initiative to ask for it. He couldn't do anything about it in the end. Now, he could only try his best to build a good relationship. If he couldn't get a marriage, it would be best to get a promise of an alliance. The kitchen of the Sun family had already prepared dinner. Sun Jingyi asked someone to call the 3 people brought by Lin Yi to have dinner together. As for the people who followed Liang Bufan, they had to deal with them themselves. Liang Bufan wouldn't have any objection as long as he could stay. During dinner, in order to please Lin Yi, Liang Bufan announced on the spot that Liang Ruoqing would marry Zhou Ruoming. As long as Zhou Ruoming came to propose, they could choose a date to get married. Chapter 5684. Genius 1 Second Remember Love. Go. Talk. Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. After the meal, Liang Bufan left with his people. Although the marriage failed, he was satisfied with the fact that he had found someone to rely on after the meal. Love, go, little talk, net, Zhou Ruoming didn't want to be separated from Liang Ruoqing even for a second, so he wanted to go back with them. Since Lin Yi had helped him so much, Zhou Ruoming hoped that Lin Yi could go with him to the Liang family's villa and help him discuss the marriage with Liang Ruoqing. He was afraid that Lin Yi would go back on his words if Lin Yi wasn't there. Sun Jingyi sent everyone out and held Lin Yi's hand with a smile. I know you will go back to that place soon, so I want to follow you. Do you think I'm annoying? Why would I? I came here to spend more time with you, but since I helped Zhou Ruoming, I have to do a good job for him. Why don't you come with me now? Lin Yi wanted Sun Jingyi to stay with him for a while, before leaving the mortal world and returning to Heavenly Island. He wanted to help Sun Jingyi improve her strength to the limit. Sun Jingyi smiled. Okay, but I still have some things to deal with here. You go to the Liang family's villa with Zhou Ruoming first. If everything goes well, I will meet you tomorrow morning. Okay, go do what you need to do. I will wait for you at the Liang family's villa. I might go to Europe with Xiaobo and Fatty Lai in the next 2 days. Remember to bring your passport and other things when you come. Love, go, little talk, net. Kolini thought of the Sacred Alliance and asked Sun Jingyi to be prepared. Okay, I'm so happy to be able to go on vacation with my little lover. Sun Jingyi didn't ask Lin Yi what he was going to do in Europe. In any case, before Lin Yi returned to Heaven Stage Island, Sun Jingyi wasn't prepared to separate from Lin Yi. Because they could see each other again tomorrow, Lin Yi didn't delay much. He greeted Sunny Kai and the others and got in the car with Languza. When the 3 cars returned to the villa, it was only about 9 o'clock in the evening. What made Lin Yi feel a little strange was that in his divine awareness, he found that there were 7 cultivators standing at the entrance of the villa and more than 30 people kneeling in the Liang family villa. It seemed that the enemies of the Liang family came to the door among these 7 cultivators. 1 was at the peak early stage of Sky class, 5 were at the Earth class, and the weakest one was at the peak late stage of Mystic class. In terms of strength, they weren't inferior to the hidden forces at all. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were ancient. To deal with the Liang family, any 2 of them were enough to wipe them out. After all, the Liang family only had 1 Earth-class cultivator, and the head of the family, Liang Bufan, was only at the early stage of Mystic class. Boss, is there a fight going on up there? Will there be a chance for me to make a move later? Languza's divine awareness was also quite powerful. He also noticed what Lin Yi noticed, so he quietly asked Lin Yi. The conversation between the 2 wasn't heard by Zhou Ruoming and the others. Lin Yi didn't care about the 7 cultivators up there, so he didn't want to remind Liang Bufan. You want to make a move against such weak opponents? Did you eat too much and want to digest the food? Lin Yi said with a smile. Languza's aggressive nature was becoming more and more obvious. Usually, masters wouldn't bother to make a move against weak chickens, but Languza didn't care at all. As long as he could fight, it was fine. Of course not, boss. Don't try to save my food expenses. I didn't eat enough just now. At most, I'm only 60% full. Languza looked at Lin Yi vigilantly. He was afraid that Languza would eat less in the future. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. If the chef of the Sun family heard Languza's words, what would he think? He worked so hard to make a feast for 30 to 40 people, and he only fed half of them? Soon, the 3 cars arrived outside the villa. Liang Bufan also saw the situation outside the gate of the villa. He was a little confused. Before the cars came to a stop, an Earth-rank expert among the 7 cultivators raised his hands, and dozens of iron nails pierced the tires of the Liang family's 2 cars at lightning speed. As for the car driven by Zhou Ruoming, Lin Yi used his divine sense to divert it a little so that he wouldn't have to repair the tires tomorrow. Fortunately, the speed of the 2 cars was almost 0, so the punctured tires didn't cause any serious consequences. Liang Bufan led the elites of the Liang family, and got off the car with a gloomy face. Liang Bufan, today is the doomsday of your Liang family. Do you have any last words? The Earth-rank expert who punctured the tires said with a sinister smile on his face. He slowly walked towards Liang Bufan and said, Gu Yuehu, if you want to take revenge, just look for me. What does it have to do with the rest of the Liang family? Let them go. I, Liang Bufan, am at your disposal. Liang Bufan said, with a gloomy face. He knew that Gu Yuehu punctured the tires to prevent them from driving away. Otherwise, the 7 of them could have killed them all. There was no need for 7 of them. Gu Yuehu alone was enough to kill all the people of the Liang family. After all, the Earth-rank expert of the Liang family was a little weaker than Gu Yuehu. Gu Yuehu laughed and said, Liang Bufan, you're really funny. Do you think that you're not at my disposal now? The rest of the Liang family originally had nothing to do with this matter. But since they've entered the Liang family, it means that they have something to do with you. Anyone who has anything to do with you, Liang Bufan, will accompany you to hell today. Liang Bufan's expression was rather ugly. He wanted the Liang family's high priest to escort Liang Ruoqing away first, but the Earth-rank high priest's face was as pale as a sheet. In the face of so many powerful cultivators, this Earth-rank high priest had already lost the will to fight. His only hope was Lin Yi. Liang Bufan secretly glanced at Lin Yi, who was sitting in the white Land Rover. With Zhou Ruoming around, he thought that he wouldn't let anything happen to Liang Ruoqing. Lin Yi's strength was unfathomable. Although the other side also had heaven-rank experts, it shouldn't be a problem for him to protect Liang Ruoqing, right? Gu Yuehu, do you know where I came from? I just came back from the Sun family in the neighboring city. To tell you the truth, our Liang family is going to have a marriage alliance with the Sun family. Don't tell me you don't know who the Sun family is? Although Liang Bufan hoped that Lin Yi could protect Liang Ruoqing, it would be better if he could use the Sun family's name to scare these people away. So he calmly used the tiger's skin as a banner. Originally, he wanted to have a marriage alliance with the Sun family to deal with Gu Yuehu, but it was too late to inform the Sun family now. Chapter 5685. Genius 1 second remember love / go away. The web provides you with wonderful novels to read. Liang Bufan was furious, but he knew he was no match for Gu Yuehu. He could only glare at him and think of a way to get out of this predicament. Zhou Ruoming just got off the car and heard Gu Yuehu insulting his sweetheart. He roared, "What did you say, you short fatty? Say it again. If you have the guts, believe it or not, I'll beat you up until your mother can't recognize you." Linny rolled his eyes. He really wanted to say that he didn't believe him. You're just a normal person and you want to beat an Earth-class expert? Unless I use Soul Hook to turn him into a punching bag. Zhou Ruoming, come back. Lin Yi thought that Liang Ruoqing was going to be Zhou Ruoming's wife soon. No matter what, he was the matchmaker. It was better to help the Liang family. Otherwise, Liang Ruoqing's father would die before she got married. Hayashi Lin. Zhou Ruoming's face was full of anger. He had already rolled up his sleeves, but he immediately stood still when Lin Yi spoke. Lin Yi glanced at the 7 cultivators in front of him. The strongest one was only at the peak of the early phase of heaven class. He was not interested in such weak opponents. You guys, I'll give you a chance to live. Leave immediately and don't come back. I'll spare your lives today. Lin Yi waved his hand, signaling the 7 cultivators to get lost. The 7 cultivators froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. Gu Yuehu even had tears in his eyes. Liang Bufan, did you hire this guy to make fun of you? Not bad, not bad. His jokes are quite funny, But didn't you tell him that he'll kill himself if he jokes like that? Gu Yuehu stopped smiling and looked at Lin Yi coldly as he spoke to Liang Bufan. You reckless brat, kneel down right now and kowtow 100 times to each of the 7 grandfathers. Then I'll spare your worthless life today. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. The weakest mystic, class master sneered. It seemed like he was trying to persuade Lin Yi, but he was actually humiliating him. Languza approached Lin Yi and asked, Boss, will it be cloudy or rainy tomorrow? Is that why there is no sun? Is that idiot a weather forecaster? Didn't they say that the weather forecast was based on the real-time situation? Sigh, human affairs are so complicated. The mystic class cultivator had sharp ears and eyes, and since Languza didn't try to hide his words, he heard everything clearly. He furrowed his brows and glared at Languza. That blind little bastard. How dare he make fun of your grandpa? Does he think that the Fire Wolf sect is a pushover? Come here, kneel down and slap yourself 100 times, and I'll let you die a quick death. Otherwise, your entire family can forget about having a good life. Boss, can I go beat him up? Languza didn't even bother about this fellow's shouts. He turned around and asked Lin. Without Lin Yi's approval, he didn't dare to make a move. Lin Yi didn't reply to Languza. Instead, he frowned and thought about it. What kind of gang was the Firewolf sect? If it was the Qian Mountain sect, they were already crippled. Why did they start to be arrogant again? They added the word Firewolf in front. Did they merge with the Firewolf gang? But weren't the Firewolf gang and the Red Conch gang on the same side? Dafeng was originally part of the Red Conch gang. If the Firewolf gang and the Qian Mountain sect merged, Dafeng should have spread the news, right? However, Lin Yi thought about it. Dafeng was currently in the central region, so it was possible that they didn't notice the Firewolf gang's movements. Moreover, they had just returned to the mortal world. So, this so-called Firewolf sect might really be the product of the merger. Sure enough, they had left for a long time. The situation was very different. They still needed some time to adapt. Liang Bufan didn't know what to do. The appearance of Lin Yi seemed to have focused all his attention on him, and Languza. However, Lin Yi didn't do anything. Liang Bufan didn't know what he was thinking. Liang Bufan was very hesitant. Should he take this opportunity to jump on Zhou Ruoming's white Land Rover with Liang watching and escape? Let Lin Yi and Languza help to resist the pursuers. Before he could figure it out, Lin Yi suddenly said to Languza, "Do you want to beat him up? Then go." Languza screamed. His body moved and disappeared like a ghost. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the profound stage cultivator. He stretched out his fan-like palm and slapped the cultivator casually. The profound stage cultivator directly turned into a pile of minced meat. Lin Yi said discontentedly, "Languza, don't be so bloody. There are girls here." Languza quickly said with a smile, "Okay, boss, I will pay attention." After that, he quickly shoveled up a layer of soil with his true chi and covered the pile of minced meat. The remaining 6 cultivators were all shocked. Whether they were Earth stage or Heaven stage, none of them saw any of Languza's movements clearly. Under such circumstances, the 6 of them still made a stupid decision. Because of the fear of Languza's strength, the 6 cultivators of Qian Mountain School didn't run away immediately. Instead, they released 6 fire wolves, thinking that it would be much safer. This kind of fire wolf was somewhat similar to the blood spiritual beast of Baixia sect in the ancient small Jianghu. However, one was of the fire attribute, while the other was of the divine sense. As soon as the 6 fire wolves appeared, they howled and formed a hunting formation. They cooperated and pounced on Languza. Languza remembered Lin Yi's words. He couldn't use two bloody methods. He completely forgot that these fire wolves were actually not made of flesh and blood. There was no bloody problem at all. Seeing that the 6 fire wolves were less than a meter away from Languza, the 6 cultivators even showed joy. However, the next moment, Languza directly opened his mouth and roared at the 6 fire wolves. The clear and melodious roar of the dragon turned into a powerful sound wave. In an instant, the 6 fire wolves were blown away. When they landed on the ground, none of these fire wolves stood up. All of them fell to the ground and kept twitching as if they were scared to death. After a while, they turned into a ball of flame and disappeared. This time, the 6 cultivators were completely dumbfounded. When Languza roared, they already felt like they were in a whirlwind. Now, they even forgot to think about running away. Those were fire wolves, Chien Mountain School's secret weapon. 6 flame wolves. Even a peak heaven rank powerhouse could tear them apart. So how could they be killed by that blue-haired fool's roar? In fact, Languza's casual roar really didn't have that much power. The main reason was the power of his body. Although the flood dragon wasn't a true dragon, it already had the embryonic form of a dragon's might. Moreover, Languza was a variant flood dragon and was even more outstanding in this aspect. Even if he wasn't as good as a true dragon, he wouldn't be outdone by much. Chapter 5686. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, talk net, providing you with wonderful novel reading. Although the fire wolf wasn't a true spirit beast and had no relation to sea beasts, it was still unable to withstand the might of this variant flood dragon. After all, the difference in level between the two was too great, and 108,000 li wasn't enough to describe the difference. Linny picked at his ear and continued to complain. Languza, I told you not to be too bloody and scare girls, but you shouldn't yell randomly. It's easier to scare people. How come you don't know how to be flexible? Quickly settle this. I'll take you to buy some handsome clothes and eat some delicious food. Once he heard that there would be handsome clothes and delicious food, Languza's spirits immediately perked up. He responded loudly and rushed to Gu Yuehu's side. Gu Yuehu didn't even see his shadow and was already grabbed by the collar by Languza. He was immediately shocked and even lost the strength to resist. No, you can't use so much strength. You have to be a bit gentler. Languza muttered to himself and loosened Gu Yuehu's collar. Gu Yuehu dizzily thought that he had escaped, but who would have thought that as soon as he landed, he would be picked up by Languza again. But this time, Languza was very careful, as if he was carrying a bomb that could explode at any time. Then he cautiously extended his palm and lightly slapped Gu Yuehu's face. Love go. Small, say, Netkagu Yuehu fearfully watched as Languza's palm slowly approached his face, and then the entire world turned upside down and quickly turned blood red. In that instant, he clearly knew that he was dead. Languza swung his hand in annoyance. He was already very careful, but in the end, he still killed Gu Yuehu with one slap and sent his head flying. Fortunately, Languza's reaction was fast enough, and he used his chi to seal Gu Yuehu's blood vessels so that it didn't cause too bloody a scene. Boss, it's so hard. This guy's neck is like tofu. Can't you let me fight to my heart's content? Languza said to Lin Yi with a face full of grief. It really wasn't because I was too heavy, but because his neck was too fragile. Lin Yi didn't pay attention to Languza's complaints, but the remaining 5 cultivators suddenly woke up. They knew that they had kicked an iron plate today. No, it was a super invincible diamond plate. If they continued to stay, they would definitely die. The one who came to find trouble with the Liang clan was Gu Yuehu, and now that his head was Gu Yuehu had been sent flying, who would be willing to die with him? The 5 cultivators from Fire Wolf Qian Mountain Gate didn't even say a word and rushed down the mountain at the same time. They only wanted to escape and let their companions buy some time for them, but they didn't expect that everyone had the same idea. They were indeed from the same nest. Languza was enraged. "Why are you running? My boss didn't say anything. Who dares to run?" Before he finished speaking, his figure flashed, and he had already brought back the 5 cultivators. Languza grabbed the collars of the 5 people, but they couldn't struggle at all. "Love, go, little say, Netku, be gentle, don't be too bloody," Languza muttered as he stretched out a finger, thinking in his heart, "I won't use my palm this time. I'll use my finger, even if it's tofu, it won't be too ugly, right?" Just as Languza's finger was about to touch the forehead of one of the Earth Stage cultivators, Languza felt that it wasn't safe, so he simply bent his finger and flicked, sending out a chi finger, and easily pierced the Earth Stage cultivator's forehead. "Ha ha ha, boss, look at me like this, right? I'm really a genius. I'm really smart and quick-witted." Languza looked back at Lin Yi with a happy face and smiled. When his chi pierced through the man's forehead, he also deliberately sealed the man's wound. And sure enough, it wasn't bloody at all. Lin Yi waved his hand and said, "Stop messing around. Quickly get rid of them. Leave one for me to question." Languza was dumbfounded, thinking to himself, "I'm not messing around. Haven't I always done as boss asked? But since boss said so, it should be reasonable. Anyway, listening to boss is the right thing to do. Quickly get rid of them. Go back to try on clothes and eat." Languza did as he thought, flicking his fingers. And in the same way, he killed all the other cultivators except for the peak early stage, heaven stage cultivator, and then carried the only survivor to Lin Yi. "Boss, this is for you to ask questions." Languza looked at Lin Yi anxiously and said, meaning that they should quickly finish asking so they can go back. Lin Yi nodded and then said to the heaven stage cultivator indifferently, "Tell me, what's going on with your Qian Mountain sect? Is it a merger between the Fire Wolf Gang and Qian Mountain sect? Who's the leader?" This heaven stage cultivator trembled like a sieve. Languza threw him on the ground, and he quickly knelt on the ground, but his body was still swaying. As a heaven stage expert, he was thrown around like a chicken without any ability to resist, especially after seeing his subordinates die so quickly. It was already very good that he didn't pee on the spot. After hearing Lin Yi's question, the heaven stage cultivator replied shakily, replying to Master, "Our Qian Mountain sect is indeed a merger between the Fire Wolf Gang and Qian Mountain sect. That leader is a person called Master One. Master, this time I'm here to help Gu Yuehu. It really has nothing to do with me. Please treat me as a fart and let me go." This guy was very smooth when he begged, but Lin Yi didn't care about him at all. Hearing Master One, the first person Lin Yi thought of was Jiang Wen. Since the Qian Mountain sect was indeed a merger between the Fire Wolf Gang and Qian Mountain sect, then Jiang Wen being the leader of the Qian Mountain sect didn't seem to be that unbelievable. "What's the address of your Qian Mountain sect?" Lin Yi didn't expect to meet an acquaintance like this. Jiang Wen was indeed an old acquaintance. Asking for the address and finding him for a chat would be more convenient. "Sir, our Qian Mountain Gate of Fire Wolf sect is still the same as the original Qian Mountain Gate. It's just that we've added the name Fire Wolf in front. However, there aren't many people in the sect now. The 7 who came are the most powerful. The rest are all Huang and ordinary disciples." Since he'd already told him everything, the guy didn't need to hide anymore. He answered everything Lin Yi asked a couple of times. Lin Yi asked curiously, "What's wrong? Your leader isn't in the sect." The guy kneeling on the ground quickly nodded. Yes. I forgot to mention, Master Wen basically isn't in our Qian Mountain sect. It's like he's just here in name, only everything is done through remote control. And he sends a batch of medicine regularly for us to increase our strength. This lowly one is the strongest in Chien Mountain sect, but compared to you two masters, I'm just a fart. No, 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 not even a fart. Why don't you just let me go like this? You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.